Chapter 107. Those who were not affected by her favorability system must have secrets that she did not know. Although Zicheng did not want to interact with such people, he did not want to offend them either. As long as she did not take the initiative to provoke him, Zicheng did not mind maintaining a friendly relationship with her on the surface. They have already left. Those guys couldn't wait to return to the central city as soon as they heard that the mission was completed. It was originally a temporary team for the mission. I can't force them to mine with me. After saying that, she winked playfully. Speaking of the mission, Ajur and the others couldn't help but feel guilty. Let alone the mission, if these guys knew that their team was the one that completed the mission, and that there was someone in their team with a high bounty on their head, who knows what would happen. It was unknown if Ajur and the others' prayers were effective, but Irene finally changed the topic. Are these the seniors in the school? Although she already knew their identities, Irene still had to pretend that it was the first time she had met them. Little Junior, you know us? Arguros touched his chin and asked with interest. Interesting. What day was it today? I just met Funwu and Ajur, these two juniors, and now there was another junior. These seniors are very famous in the school. Among us freshmen, there are many who have a crush on the seniors. Irene said playfully. Are we that popular? Arguros was excited. He even wiped his hair to make himself look more handsome. That's impossible. I believe that those girls have a crush on Ming-Shi. Elena said bluntly. Hey, besides Ming-Shi, we are also handsome guys that everyone loves. How can there not be girls who are interested in us? Arguros said unhappily. Irene had a cheerful personality. When she wanted to please someone, it was not difficult for her to become familiar with the Ming-Shi team. While Aaron was chatting with Ming-Shi and the others, Ting Wind, Ting Rain, and Pei Che weren't idling around either. As they ate, they didn't forget to exchange a few words. Only Funwu was acting a little strange. She was usually more enthusiastic than anyone when it came to food, but now she was looking at the door or the window from time to time. Ajur noticed her abnormal behavior. Even Ming-Shi, who occasionally glanced at the Funwu girl, noticed her abnormality. Xiao Wu, what are you looking at? Is there something at the door? Elena was sitting beside Funwu. Funwu's reaction was so obvious that it was difficult for Elena to pretend that she did not see it. It's so red outside. Funwu bit her lips and said with a frown. So red? Pei Qing repeated in a strange manner. Xiao Wu, did you say it wrong? It's so black. Tingyu helped Funwu correct her mistake in a small voice. It's not so black, it's so red. Funwu said with certainty. No one knew that the world in Funwu's eyes had completely changed. The heavy rain outside had turned into a bloody rain. Even the sky was blood red. Red? Everyone felt a burst of strange feeling. Everyone looked at the door. No, it was as black as night. How could it be red? What kind of eyes were they looking at? Was Funwu colorblind? At this moment, a group of guards led a young girl wearing a veil hat to run over in a somewhat sorry state. The young girl's dress was already wet from the rain, and the back of her dress was gradually covered with mud. Fortunately, there was a maid at the side who had been holding an umbrella for her, so her dress wasn't completely wet. However, the maids beside the young girl were all drenched. In an instant, with the arrival of the girl, the entire inn was filled with hundreds of guards. Princess Nana is here. Why aren't you all moving out of the way? A maid in red, who was drenched by the rain, still looked at the only table of customers in the inn, which was Funwu and the others, and said loudly. Move out of the way. Where are you going? It's raining so heavily outside. You're really imaginative. Arguros looked disdainfully at the maid who was pretending to be powerful. How dare you? The princess wants to temporarily take shelter from the rain here. If you all know what's good for you, why aren't you leaving? The maid in red shouted sternly. In terms of first come first serve, we came first. Why should we leave? What bullshit, princess. Ruglas didn't put her in his eyes at all. You all. The maid wanted to say something, but was stopped by a man in armor who was dressed as a commander. That's enough. It's raining so heavily outside. You, a little maid, actually want to chase the commoners out. Even if the king was here, he would not bully the commoners like this. The commander shouted at the red-clothed maid. All right, stop talking. Quickly prepare a room for this princess. This princess is about to die from exhaustion. The Princess Nana wearing the veil hat said impatiently. Boss, immediately prepare a good room for the princess. The commander said to the boss. Yes, yes, yes. This humble one will do it right away. The boss with 2 tufts of beard didn't dare delay the princess. He immediately personally led the princess and her maid to the best room in the inn to rest. That commander isn't bad. Ting Yu said. He isn't bad. Unfortunately, that princess doesn't look like a good person. Rika, who hadn't said anything until now, opened her mouth. For a proud girl like Rika, she never liked girls who had a higher or lower status than her. That Princess Nana was one of the 2 types of girls that Rika hated the most. Ming Shi's table was quietly talking. The soldiers who came in to take shelter from the rain asked the waiter to prepare some food and drinks. They then casually wiped their clothes with a towel and tidied themselves up. The commander nodded at Ming Shi and then didn't look at them. He minded his own business and sat at a table some distance away from them to eat. As for the princess food, it was naturally brought upstairs to eat. How could a princess come downstairs to eat with so many men? Ajur, there's something wrong with that princess. Feng Wu suddenly said. There's something wrong with the princess? She's a fake princess? Elena asked curiously. Her entire body is filled with blood. She's surrounded by vengeful spirits. More than 100 vengeful spirits, all of them female vengeful spirits. Many people will die. Someone will definitely die. Feng Wu muttered to herself. Feng Wu's eyes could see things that others couldn't. Ever since Princess Nana came in, she had noticed something strange about Princess Nana. She was surrounded by countless vengeful spirits. All of them wanted to kill the princess. They were howling in pain and attacking Princess Nai crazily. However, it was a pity that Princess Nai seemed to have something protecting her body. They couldn't hurt her at all. On the other hand, the vengeful spirits that were attacking Princess Nai were severely injured by the protective item on her body. A few vengeful spirits had their souls dissipated just like that. Chapter 108. Feng Wu could clearly see these things, but the others couldn't see them. After all, none of them were necromancers. Blood aura. Why can't we see it? Is there something wrong with your eyes? Rika said disdainfully. That's right. You can see things that none of us can see, and you call yourself a wraith. Do you think you're a necromancer? Eve laughed mockingly. Ming Shi and the others didn't think that these things didn't exist just because they couldn't see them. Ming Shi's team was no ordinary person, and they wouldn't deny others because of something they didn't know. It was just that Feng Wu's words were too hard to believe. Just as Eve had said, Feng Wu wasn't a necromancer. In fact, not only was Feng Wu not a necromancer, she wasn't even a mage of any other major. She didn't have any talent for magic. If she did, she wouldn't have gone to the psychic department. Someone with no talent for magic was telling them that she could see the undead. Even if Ming Shi and the others didn't think that Feng Wu would lie, they still held a skeptical attitude in their hearts. After all, this was too hard to believe, wasn't it? You guys better listen to Xiao Wu. Xiao Wu's eyes are different from yours. She can see things that ordinary people can't. If you don't believe me, I have something here that you might be able to use. Ajur took out a small bottle of transparent white potion from his space ring as he spoke. This was the potion that the old mage had given them last time. This kind of potion that could see the undead was something that only beginner necromancer apprentices would use. Necromancers had their own system, and they wouldn't sell this kind of potion outside. Only a few people who had a good relationship with necromancers might be gifted a bit. Isn't this the occult potion? I didn't expect you to carry such a thing with you. Elena exclaimed in a low voice. This occult potion was named after it was sprayed on a person's eyes. It was said that the person who created this occult potion was a god-ranked necromancer, the world's first necromancer. When that mage became a god, he created this potion in order to ensure that the necromancer's legacy would not be cut off. The purpose of this potion was to help necromancer apprentices who had yet to open their eyes to see the existence of the undead, and to help those apprentices get used to interacting with spirits faster. Only necromancers knew the formula of this potion. Although these necromancers weren't very harmonious, they still had a common sense of protecting the formula. It didn't matter if the person was a white magician or a dark necromancer, at the very least, they wouldn't divulge the secret of the occult potion to outsiders. Although the potion was small, those who had the means could still get some and sell it in the shop or auction house. However, the price would be very high, and not many people would buy it. After all, who would want to see what the undead looked like? Wouldn't that be looking for trouble? Because there weren't many people who needed the occult potion, even if it rarely appeared on the market, it wasn't that hard to buy. Now that they saw Ajur actually had the occult potion in his hands, although this made Elena and the others surprised, it didn't shock them. How about it? Do you dare to use it? Ajur arrogantly shook the potion bottle in his hand with a face full of arrogance. Let's use it, who's afraid of you? Argyros stretched out his hand and snatched the occult potion, then sprayed it into his eyes twice. Because of the foreign object entering his eyes, Argyros blinked uncomfortably. At this moment, almost everyone's attention was focused on him. How is it, Senior? Did you see anything? Irene was the first to ask. Eve and Rika had expressions of disbelief. Magicians were the noblest profession in the entire continent. If Fengwu could see the undead, wouldn't it prove that she had the talent to become a necromancer? Necromancers were very strong in battle, and they also had long lifespans. Legend had it that they had their own ways to extend their lifespans. It was really difficult to convince them that Fengwu, who had a little bit of magic talent, had the potential to become a necromancer. Anyway, they wouldn't believe it even if you beat them to death. How is it? Elena and Ruglas were also very curious. Argyros blinked. When he opened his eyes again, he found that the world had changed. The world that was originally as dark as night had turned into a blood-red color. The blood-red color surrounded the entire small inn. The inn was filled with red blood mist, and the screams of the undead could be heard coming from the second floor. The strange thing was that there were so many people in the hall eating and drinking in this large blood mist, and they weren't affected at all. This scene was strange no matter how one looked at it, and it sent chills down one's spine. The most unacceptable thing was that outside the inn, there was a basin of rain pouring down. The rain that was originally transparent in his eyes had turned into a blood-red color. The pungent smell of blood outside the door made him want to vomit. After only a few seconds, even Argyros, who thought he had seen a lot, turned pale. Everyone knew what was going on when they saw his expression. Ruglas called out a few times, but didn't see any response. He had no choice but to grab the bottle from Argyros and sprayed it into his own eyes. The second guy with a pale face appeared. Ming-Shi and Skycliff looked at each other. Even an idiot could see that something was wrong. The two sprayed the occult potion into their own eyes one after the other. After realizing their situation, even the calm Skycliff's face stiffened a little. Ming-Shi's face didn't change, but the seriousness in his eyes was obvious. No way, is there really something? I don't believe it, I want to spray it too. Eve was waiting for Fengwu to make a fool of herself, but she didn't expect reality to give her a slap in the face. She was a girl who wouldn't give up until all hope was gone. If she didn't see it with her own eyes, she wouldn't believe that Fengwu could really see the undead even if she was beaten to death. As she spoke, she pulled out a chair and walked to Skycliff's side. She wanted to take the occult potion and spray it, but Skycliff flipped his hand, and the potion didn't fall into Eve's hands. Senior Skycliff. Eve was unconvinced. She even began to suspect that these seniors didn't want Fengwu to make a fool of herself, so they pretended to be frightened to get away with it. Thinking of this, Eve was even more dissatisfied. Why? Why did everyone have to stand on Fengwu's side? This reminded Eve of the last stage of the entrance exam, when she was ostracized because of Fengwu. Girls, don't look. I don't want to hear your screams. Skycliff glanced coldly at Eve. The reason he didn't give Eve the occult potion wasn't because he was protective of the fairer sex, but because he didn't want to hear their high-pitched screams. Chapter 109. Ruglas and Arguros expressed their understanding. Even the men were so scared that their hearts were pounding. If the girls saw this scene, they would scream and faint. These girls were still freshmen and had never seen such a cruel scene. They did not think that the girls could withstand it as well as them. Is it really that scary? Why don't you try it, Ting Feng? Tell me what you see after you try it. Pei Qing originally wanted to try it himself, but after seeing the change in the faces of the people, he changed his mind. He did not want to see anything disgusting. Why should I look? Why don't you look? Ting Feng shouted unhappily. He was not curious at all, so there was no need for him to look. Captain, why don't you take a look? Ting Yu carefully probed. Ajur calmly glanced at these people, then let Skycliff pass the elixir back to him. After taking the elixir, Ajur nonchalantly sprayed it into his eyes twice. How is it? What do you see? Ting Yu and the other two asked curiously. It's all red. Ajur said with a strange expression. Even Ajur, who was prepared, was shocked by the scene. It was just as Fengwu said. Of course, he never doubted Fengwu. Fengwu Jr., this senior admires you. You can still calmly eat without vomiting after seeing such a scene. You really are an expert. Arguros looked at Fengwu with admiration. Ruglas nodded furiously at the side. Even Ming Shi and Skycliff showed their approval in their eyes. Why can't I eat it? Fengwu girl expressed that the food tasted good and the barbecue was well done. Don't you think it stinks? Don't you feel like vomiting after eating in this environment? Ruglas asked. I don't think so. Fengwu shook her head seriously, indicating that the environment did not affect her. How could I not feel that way? This place is clearly. Arguros could not continue. Well, he regretted it. If he had known that he would see such a bloody scene, he would not have been the first to seek death. If you eat seriously when you eat, you won't feel any other taste. Fengwu thought for a moment and knitted her delicate brows. Eat seriously when you're eating? What kind of explanation was this? Everyone was silent. Why did they feel that this explanation was very profound? Is it really that disgusting? Let me try, Junior. Elena's curiosity was piqued. Elena had always been a tomboy. She loved to challenge things that even men were afraid of. After seeing the calm Ming Shi and the indifferent Tianya change their expressions, Elena couldn't help but want to experience what it was like to frighten these two experts to the point that their expressions changed. Here you go. Ajur straightforwardly handed the bottle of elixir to Elena. After Elena received the bottle, she impatiently sprayed the elixir into her eyes. After blinking a few times to adapt to the elixir in her eyes, Elena boldly looked outside the inn. As expected, it was a sea of blood. The smell of blood was enough to make people vomit out the food they ate 2 days ago. It's really interesting. The tomboy Elena frowned and returned to normal. Senior Elena, did you see it too? Eve still didn't dare to believe it. After being rejected by Skycliff, although she didn't dare to pester that ice-cube face of Skycliff, she was much bolder when facing Elena, who was also a girl. Elena's reputation had always been good among the girls. Although in the eyes of the boys, she was a tomboy, in the eyes of the girls, she was a senior who was willing to help others. When the girls met with problems that they couldn't solve, they would look for Elena. If she was able to solve it, she wouldn't be stingy. Thus, Elena's popularity had always been very high among the girls. That's right. This senior advises you to listen to Skycliff's words. Trust this senior. When you see what we see now, you might immediately scream and faint. You might not even want to eat anything for a few days. Although Elena didn't have a good impression of Eve, no matter what, she was still a girl. She still had to give her face. Alright, Eve, just listen to your seniors. They're doing this for our sake. Be good. Sit down and eat. Zicheng gently comforted Eve. He didn't want Eve to go against the seniors at this time. This wouldn't be beneficial for the girls. If she wanted to enter the tomb of the gods, she still needed the help of these seniors. At this time, they definitely couldn't strangle their relationship. Irene just sat at the side and smiled. Seeing Zicheng comforting Eve, she sneered in her heart. You want to go to the tomb of the gods to get the divine weapon? You have to get my permission first. If you want to use the seniors to pave the way for you, then make good use of them. These people were all powerful experts. It was only with them that they could successfully enter the two-realm battlefield and then enter the tomb of the gods. Princess Nana's people didn't know about the changes in the surroundings of the small hotel. After eating, the commander assigned people to guard the surroundings of the small hotel. He didn't let anyone suspicious that would harm the princess enter this small hotel. At this time, in a room on the second floor, Princess Nana had already changed into a light green dress. She wore a princess crown on her head. She looked exceptionally gorgeous. Princess Nana was originally a famous beauty in the Soya Empire. Her skin was like cream, her eyes were limpid, her brows were like distant mountains, and her lips were like red maple leaves. She also had a head of long hair that reached her hips. If she was born in the modern world, her hair could totally be used in a shampoo advertisement. Princess, do you want to eat something first? At this time, a red-clothed maid walked into the room with a plate of food. The boss had specially asked the kitchen to prepare this. Of course, the ingredients used were all brought by Princess Nana's people. The Princess Nana would never touch the food that ordinary people ate. Just leave it there. You and Mayor should go and change your clothes too. It's not good for your health to wear such revealing clothes. Princess Nainai sat in front of the dressing mirror and casually brushed her hair with her hand. The red-clothed maid Xiao Na and Mayor thanked Princess Nana emotionally. Then, they quickly went to the room next door to change their clothes. Although it was summer, no normal person would like to wear revealing clothes. Xiao Na and Mayor naturally didn't like it either. However, without the princess's permission, they couldn't go down to change their clothes. Fortunately, the princess didn't forget about them. The two of them bowed to the princess and then left the room where the princess was temporarily staying. They went to another room to change their clothes. Mayor and Xiao Na were both capable maids by the princess's side. They were naturally different from ordinary maids. Before the two of them went to change their clothes, a little maid had already brought in new clean clothes. Chapter 110. The two of them each took a set of clothes, took off their wet clothes, and changed into the clean clothes that had just been delivered. Xiao Na, don't you think there's something wrong with the princess? Mayor thought about it again and again, then took a deep breath and asked. Xiao Na's hand that was tidying up the clothes paused for a moment, then said as if nothing had happened, the princess is the princess. As maids, we only need to take good care of the princess. Other things are not for us to care about. But, if. Mayor bit her lip and said with some reluctance. There's no if. We've already boarded the princess ship. There's no turning back. Don't think too much and do your job well. Xiao Na pulled her skirt and stepped out of the room where they changed their clothes. Mayor still wanted to say something, but in the end, all the unspoken words turned into a sigh, and then followed her out of the room. Xiao Na was right. No matter what they found, they could not spread it out. If it was spread out, they would die. At this time downstairs, Fenwu and the others had already eaten their fill. Of course, those who were full were probably those who were mentally strong enough, or those who did not see anything at all. Most of the people who saw those scenes said that they could no longer eat anything, and that they wanted to vomit as soon as they ate. Xiao Wu, what do we do now? Tingyu's little heart was pounding in fear. Ever since she knew that this place was actually surrounded by a large pool of blood, Tingyu's heartbeat had not calmed down. We don't have a necromancer among us. This kind of situation should be handled by a necromancer. Argyros' face was a little pale, and he looked a little dispirited. It's too late. Necromancers are rare. Even if the Soya Empire has a necromancer, it's impossible for him to come here in such a short time. Ming Shi's face looked calm, but deep worry could be seen in his eyes. Ming Shi was a rare handsome man in the world. Now that he looked so worried, it made people feel sorry for him. They wished they could bring all the good things in front of him, just to ask him to show off his beauty. Xiao Wu, can you summon Liddy over? I remember that the necromancer gave Liddy some training methods before he left. Maybe she knows what's going on. Ajur thought for a few seconds and suddenly thought of the little undead who had been missing since they brought her back. Okay, I'll give it a try. Fengwu nodded and tried to summon Liddy in her mind. Liddy was Fengwu's contract spirit, and she had no strength. When Fengwu needed her, she could summon her no matter where she was. Because both sides had signed an equal contract, if Fengwu wanted to successfully summon her contract spirit, she had to get the contract spirit's consent. It was not as binding as a master-servant contract. When she wanted to summon her contract spirit, regardless of whether the other party was willing or not, she could forcibly summon her contract spirit to her side. Who is Liddy? Elena asked on behalf of everyone. That's Xiao Wu's contract spirit. Even if she can't help us, she should be able to explain the current situation. That way, we'll know what to do. Ajur said faintly. Everyone made an "oh" sound. They hadn't thought that Fengwu would actually have a contract spirit. Wasn't it said that only necromancers could contract spirits to fight for them? After a minute, behind Fengwu, everyone who had used the occult potion could see a burst of white smoke suddenly appear. Then, a cute little girl about 11 or 12 years old wearing white clothes suddenly appeared behind Fengwu. The little girl curiously looked left and right. After discovering that she was surrounded by a blood-red mist, her entire soul felt unwell. Heavens! Xiao Wu, how could you summon me to such a dirty place? This place is full of resentment, it's dirty and smelly. The little girl's cute little mouth was full of complaints. Wow, what a cute spirit. I thought that spirits would all have a green face and fangs or bleed from all 7 orifices. I didn't think that spirits could be so cute. Ruglas propped up his chin with both hands and stared at Liddy with interest. Cute little girl, are you Liddy? You're so cute. Elena loved cute little girls the most. If it weren't for the fact that the little girl was a spirit and did not have a physical body for her to ravage, Liddy might have already buried her head in her chest and served her miserably. Huh, you can see me. Liddy was surprised that so many people could see her, but she immediately came to a realization, so it's the occult potion, no wonder you can see me. Tell me, why did you call me here? I was having fun when you called me here, she pouted unhappily. As Fengwu was not an expert at telling stories, the group decided to let Argyros, who was good at talking, explain the situation to the little undead girl. You're saying that there's a scary big sister upstairs, who is being harassed by a lot of undead. The sky outside has turned red, the rain has turned into a bloody mist, and the whole house is covered in a bloody mist. That's it, right? Liddy simplified Ajigro's long speech into a few short sentences. That's right, that's it. Say, little girl Liddy, do you know what's going on? Why is it that we can only see the bloody rain outside after we sprayed the occult potion on it? Without the occult potion, we can't even smell anything, let alone see it. The group had a lot of doubts. Argyros finally found someone who could answer his doubts, so he could not wait to ask. Among the group, except for a few girls who had not sprayed the occult potion, the scene in the eyes of the boys and the two girls, Fengwu and Elena, was almost like Azura hell. It was said that the place where the Azuras lived was full of blood. The place they were in now was probably not much worse. Liddy rolled her eyes. During this period, Liddy had not been idle at all. Whenever she had time, she would work hard to cultivate her spiritual energy and read the book that the old magician had left for her. After a period of study, Liddy was no longer the little undead who did not know anything. Of course you can't see it. You can't be thinking that what you see now is a real bloody mist and bloody rain, right? Is it not? Everyone was puzzled as they looked at Liddy, who was looking down at them from above. Of course not. What you see now is just resentment formed by resentment. This resentment is full of killing intent, so it formed the bloody rain and bloody mist. In other words, these are not real, but just illusions formed by resentment. Skycliff raised his eyebrows. That's right. If it's true that everyone can see it, why would we need to spray the occult potion? Liddy looked at everyone in disdain. Chapter 111. Ming Shi and the others all felt a faint sadness. The feeling of being despised by a little undead was really not good at all. Do you know why there is such a strong resentment? Ming Shi asked. There are many reasons for resentment. How would I know which one it is? Liddy looked at Ming Shi, who was speaking, and covered her face shyly. If undead could blush, her little face would definitely be red. Although I still can't see the reason for this resentment, I can see another thing. Liddy pretended to be mysterious and winked at Ming Shi with a hint of flattery in her eyes. Rugla's and the others' mouths twitched slightly. Sure enough, like master, like spirit. The master liked Ming Shi, and the contract spirit also seemed to be interested in Ming Shi. Would the relationship between the master and the spirit break down because of Ming Shi, and finally put on a wonderful drama of master and servant chasing the same man? Just as everyone was fantasizing in their hearts, a woman in green clothes and a curtain hat slowly walked down from the second floor. The whole hall suddenly quieted down. In this small inn, apart from the sound of the rain outside, it seemed that only the woman's footsteps could be heard. Leafman, the princess has ordered you to set off immediately to the town in front of us to rest. Xiao Na stood behind the princess and looked at Leafman as she said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. But princess, it's raining so heavily outside. It's too dangerous to travel in the rain. Leafman's duty was to protect Princess Nana. Now that the princess was going to do something dangerous, Leafman certainly wanted to stop it as soon as possible. This rain has been going on for a long time, and I don't know when it will stop. If it continues for a few days, do you want Her Royal Highness to stay in this broken inn all the time? Mei smiled coldly. She was also a princess, and as a capable maid, Mei would never lose her imposing manner in front of outsiders. This. Leafman still wanted to persuade him. Princess Nana finally spoke. Her voice was slightly cold, but it carried a natural charm. There's no need to say any more. This princess has already made up her mind. It doesn't matter what anyone says. Let's head to the town immediately. This princess must be a beauty. It's a pity that she's always wearing a veiled hat. It would be nice to see what she looks like. Argyros glanced at Princess Nana a few times. You won't be able to enjoy this beauty. I'm afraid that the changes in the surroundings of this small hotel have a lot to do with this Princess Nana. Elena smiled coldly. She didn't have the slightest good impression of Princess Nana. Because of the princess's insistence, Leafman had no choice but to order his soldiers to get ready. Not long after Princess Nana left, the entire sky began to clear up. This rain came and went without any warning, and it stopped just like that. See, there's indeed something wrong with Princess Nana. Elena had an expression of, as expected. She looked provocatively at Arguros. Arguros could only shut his mouth and not say anything. Waiter, ask your boss to come over. Ming-Shi ignored Arguros and Elena. He waved his hand at a nearby waiter. That waiter was also quick-witted. He immediately ran to call the boss over. When the boss heard that there were guests who wanted to see him, he quickly walked over. When he saw Ming-Shi and the others, he was very polite. The boss opened an hotel not far from the two-realm battlefield, so he naturally had some eyesight. With one look, he knew that this group of people weren't ordinary people. Regardless of whether they were men or women, the temperament on their bodies wasn't something that ordinary people could possess. Adventurers, may I know why you've called me here? The boss was also a smart person. The moment Princess Nana left, these people called him over. It was likely that the question they wanted to ask was related to Princess Nana. That's right. We do have a question to ask you, boss. May I ask, how much do you know about Princess Nana? Ming-Shi's elegant jade-like face had a faint smile. It was very easy for people to feel good about him. In addition to his beautiful face, it was likely that it wouldn't be easy to find someone who disliked him in this world. Princess Nana is the youngest daughter of the current Emperor Suoya. Our Emperor Suoya has a total of 3 sons and 2 daughters. The 2 daughters are a pair of twins. One is Princess Chi-Chi, and the other is naturally Princess Nana. Princess Chi-Chi has shown great talent for magic since she was young. She is currently studying in the 2nd year of the Notre Dame du Starlight. Princess Nana doesn't have any talent for magic. She has also studied magic since she was young. Princess Nana is publicly recognized as the most untalented member of the imperial family. Although Princess Nana doesn't have any talent for magic, His Highness and the Queen didn't neglect her. Although they don't dote on her as much as they do Princess Chi-Chi, they still care about her. That means that Princess Nana is also quite pitiful. The most untalented princess of the imperial family, I'm afraid that her days won't be easy. Zicheng's eyes carried a trace of pity as he spoke. It really won't be easy. If it was easy, she wouldn't come to the two-realm battlefield to train every year. She hopes that she can increase her strength. The boss nodded and agreed with Zicheng's words. You're saying that Princess Nana comes to train every year? Irene asked. That's right. She comes every year. It's just that this year is special. This is her 2nd time coming. The boss thought for a moment and said. 2nd time? When was the first time she came this year? Ming-Shi's brows furrowed slightly. He always felt a very unpleasant aura towards that Princess Nana, but he couldn't figure out what it was at the moment. About 4 months ago. The boss thought for a moment and replied. She came 4 months ago, and she's here again so soon. There must be a problem somewhere. Pei Biao played with his fingers. Something seemed to flash through the boss's eyes when he heard Pei Qing's words. Ming-Shi and the others naturally noticed that instant change in the boss. Boss, is there something that's hard to say? Ming-Shi looked at the boss with a warm gaze. This, AI. I see that all of you are capable people. This was originally just my guess, but the town might be in trouble again. I have no choice but to ask for your help. The boss suddenly said after thinking it over. What do you mean, boss? Speak more clearly. Ajur said with a bit of impatience. He hated it the most when people spoke halfway. Wasn't that just trying to make him anxious? There's a small town not far ahead. The waiters and I all come from that small town. In the past few months, many strange things have happened in that small town. Many young girls have gotten pregnant before marriage. Those girls all said that they had never had an affair with anyone, but they suddenly became pregnant. This matter caused a huge commotion in our small town. Until one day, a girl couldn't stand the gossip and killed herself with a sword. However, something strange happened at that time. The girl wanted to kill herself, but she couldn't kill herself. No matter how many cuts she made on her body, her wounds would immediately heal. She couldn't die even if she wanted to. Chapter 112. Originally, the mayor had always thought that these young girls were unmarried and had illicit relations with men, resulting in the birth of a vile spawn. However, after the suicide of the young girl happened, the people in the town felt that something was amiss. The mayor and some elders believed that the young girls might have been attracted to a demonic creature, which is why they became pregnant. After all, the town is not far from the two-realm battlefield. It is absolutely possible that some demonic creature would come out. No, the two-realm battlefield has been sealed by a powerful being. Furthermore, those demons have long been dead. How could they possibly run out and cause trouble? Ruglas interrupted the boss when he heard this. Listen to me slowly. Don't be anxious. Aren't I just about to say it? The boss rolled his eyes at him. Ruglas obediently shut his mouth under the gloating gaze of Argyros. Everyone thought that the sudden pregnancy of the young girls must have something to do with those demons. Thus, the mayor went to the magician's guild and invited a lord magician to find the demon that harmed the young girls. However, the magician didn't find anything after looking around. He said that the young girls couldn't have been harmed by demons. They were probably unmarried and got pregnant because of their own indecency. The mayor told the magician about the young girl who committed suicide. The magician said that the young girl who committed suicide wouldn't die no matter what. It was probably because of her special physique or because she ate some kind of strange fruit. In any case, the magician just walked around the town and left. He didn't take any less money. Because of the magician's words, the people who were already shaken began to believe that it was really the fault of the young girls that they were impregnated by men. The young girls cried and cried, but no one believed in their innocence. In the end, the young girls were all locked up at home by their own families. They couldn't even take a step out of the house. Some parents even found abortion medicine to abort their children. However, it was useless. No matter how much abortion medicine they took, the children couldn't be aborted. The Princess Nana came to our town at the time when the matter was at its peak. The mayor was afraid that the princess would find out about those girls and have a bad opinion of our town, so he deliberately concealed the matter. Therefore, the princess didn't know about it. After the princess left, there were no more girls who suddenly got pregnant. I felt that something was wrong, so I specially went to the house of a good friend of mine. Unfortunately, my friend's daughter also encountered the same thing. I asked the child some questions and finally found the problem. The boss let out a long sigh, not knowing if he was feeling sorry for his friend's family. What is it? Tingyu looked at the boss curiously. Fengwu listened quietly, and even Liddy listened with great interest. While listening, she seemed to be thinking about something. It turns out that before those pregnant girls got pregnant, they all had a dream. In the dream, they went to a magnificent palace. In the palace, there lived a very beautiful prince. My little niece went on a date with that prince in the dream, and they had sex. At that time, my little niece only thought that it was a wet dream and didn't think much about it. It wasn't until she was pregnant that she realized that the dream wasn't simple. She started to feel afraid. During the period when the matter was blown up, my little niece also met other girls who were pregnant like her. After asking around, they all said that they met a handsome man in their dreams. When that man appeared in the girls' dreams, sometimes he said that he was a prince, sometimes he said that he was a noble. He also said that he was an ancient sword god. In short, in the mouths of those girls, that man's identity was all kinds of things, but all of them were noble and attractive. Did they all dream of the same person? Argyros touched his chin. An indescribable emotion flashed through the eyes of the others. Yes, it was the same person. My niece asked carefully, but it was the same person. The boss sighed. Strange, it's just a dream. How can I be pregnant? This is too unbelievable. Elena had been a tough girl since she was young. She dared to say anything to others. Boss, please continue. You said that after Princess Nainai left, there were no more rumors of unmarried women getting pregnant in your town. Did you discover something? Although Ming Shi believed that he knew a thing or two about the world's secrets, but something like getting pregnant in a dream was too unbelievable. He searched through his memories, but he couldn't remember seeing any similar records in the ancient books at home. I did discover something. The boss's expression changed. After thinking for a while, he decided to tell them what he discovered. After Princess Nana left, there were no more incidents in the town. At that time, I felt that it was strange and wanted to find out if the pregnancy of those girls was related to Princess Nana. I spent some money to hire freelance mercenaries and asked them to help me investigate if there were any rumors of unmarried girls getting pregnant. I didn't expect that I would really find out something. Ever since Princess Nainai returned to the palace, nothing had happened in the capital on the surface. However, in secret, 3 ladies from aristocratic families had been found to be pregnant before marriage. The families of those ladies had wanted to secretly get rid of the children, but no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't get rid of the children. They couldn't even take the lives of their unborn children. This was only something that happened to those noble ladies. If we count those commoner girls, I'm afraid that there will be many victims. The boss was smart. From Princess Nainai's behavior, he had realized some things. After a few months of investigation by the freelance mercenaries, he was finally able to confirm that there was something wrong with Princess Nainai. He just didn't know if Princess Nana knew about that thing hiding in the dark. If she knew, then why did she do it? If she didn't know, then Princess Nana was another victim. Boss, you want us to help those girls in your town find that evil monster? Zicheng looked at the boss. He admired the boss's character. At the very least, he didn't sweep the snow in front of his door. Instead, he thought of a way to ask for help. That's right. What a monster. If I'm not wrong, he has always been by Princess Nana's side. As long as he follows Princess Nana, we will definitely be able to catch that monster. The boss chatted with Ming Shi and the others for a while before leaving. Ming Shi and the others were still discussing this matter. How was it? Liddy, did you think of anything after hearing what the boss said? Ajur turned to look at Liddy. The others also turned to look at her at the same time. After all, there wasn't a single necromancer among them. What happened this time was obviously related to the supernatural. Chapter 113. None of them knew about this kind of thing, so they could only count on the little ghost Liddy. This is very unusual. You have to go to that town as soon as possible. Otherwise, all the people in the town will die. Liddy's eyes darkened. Is it that serious? Skycliffe raised his eyebrows. Yes, it is. This is very unusual. If you want to get involved, go there as soon as possible. If you don't want to get involved, I advise you to go as far away as possible. No one in that town will survive. Seeing that Liddy didn't look like she was joking, everyone's heart sank. They all knew that they were in big trouble this time. There are so many people in that town. As students of the Notre Dame du Starlight, how can we not care about the lives of those ordinary people? We have to get involved. Ruglos was so excited that he pounded the table with his fist, making the cups on the table jump. Ruglos is right. We can't just ignore it. The Notre Dame du Starlight will accept help from ordinary people. This time, we have to accept the boss's request. Ming-Shi nodded. Ming-Shi had already made up his mind to go to the town where the incident happened. In the Notre Dame du Starlight, besides guarding the gate, the guards were also responsible for receiving ordinary people. If there were any strange things that they couldn't solve in their homes, or if they found traces of magic beasts, they could go to the Notre Dame du Starlight for help. Solving problems that could only be solved by swordsmen and magicians was also a kind of training for the students of the Sacred Institute. Of course, the Notre Dame du Starlight wouldn't take a penny for doing this for ordinary people. Although the Notre Dame du Starlight didn't take money to help ordinary people, it didn't mean that the school would help with everything. If it was just a family matter, the teachers of the Sacred Institute would never agree to help. What was happening in this small town had obviously reached the level where the Sacred Academy had to take action. As students of the Sacred Academy, they had no reason to refuse. Junior sisters, don't go. It's too dangerous this time. Stay here and wait. As a good senior who loved her juniors, Elena naturally didn't want anything to happen to these girls who had just entered the school. Senior, I'll go with you guys. I'll take good care of myself and won't create trouble for the seniors. Irene looked at Elena, using a resolute gaze to express her determination to go. I'll go too. Seniors, please don't worry. I have some confidence in my own strength. I won't be a burden. Zicheng said with the same determined look in his eyes. Then I want to go too. I want to be with Xiao Cheng. Eve didn't want to be separated from Zicheng. Originally, she didn't want to go. It was just a dream and she got pregnant. That was too scary. If it wasn't because Zicheng wanted to go and it was just Eve alone, she definitely wouldn't mind staying here to watch over them. I'll stay. My strength is too weak compared to the seniors. I don't want to distract them. Rika spoke up at this moment. Elena had thought that Rika would insist on following them. She didn't expect that Rika could see it clearly. What Rika said was right. No matter how strong the freshmen were, there was still a huge gap between them and the seniors. Even if Zicheng and Irene said that they would protect them and wouldn't be a burden, when the time came, how could they, as seniors, leave them in the lurch? Zicheng and Irene were still fine. Both of them had outstanding performances among the freshmen this year. Even if they couldn't compare to a juror, it wouldn't be a problem for them to get into the top 10 of the year. As for Eve, it would be good enough if she could get into the top 50 of the year, not to mention the others. If she wanted to go with them, she would just be cannon fodder and a burden. Elena and the others were a little displeased that Eve couldn't see through her own strength and was still pestering them to the point that she was determined to go. They thought that Rika was also a muddle-headed person. They didn't expect that Rika would see things clearly and know what to say at this moment. Unlike Eve, who only had Zicheng in her eyes and didn't think about anything else. Irene saw Eve's performance and secretly frowned. She suddenly thought of something. When she read the novel before, she felt that Eve was abnormally good to Zicheng. It wasn't just Eve. Many people who liked Zicheng and had a favorability level of 100 were too impatient with Zicheng. She thought of the novel's description of the favorability system. As long as the favorability level reached 100, the favorability level would never decrease. In the past, she didn't think much of it, but now that she took a closer look, she realized that the favorability level would never decrease. Didn't that mean that as long as someone's favorability level for Zicheng reached 100, no matter what Zicheng did to them, they would forgive him? Maybe even if Zicheng stabbed them, they would be glad that they died in the hands of their good friend. She really didn't think about it. Thinking about it, so many people in the novel were willing to die for Zicheng. Was this normal? If it was only a man, it would be fine. It could be said that this guy loved Zicheng so much that he didn't even care about his life. However, those who died for Zicheng included a few women. They were Zicheng's good friends. She remembered that in the novel, one of Zicheng's roommates knew that Zicheng needed a piece of rare ore. She actually snuck into her family's ancestral land and stole a piece of the family heirloom, a piece of meteorite, and gave it to Zicheng. Later, Zicheng's friend was chased out of the house because of this. That girl even said that she didn't regret doing this and was willing to do anything for her good friend. The introduction of that girl in the novel also said that she was a pampered child of her family. That piece of rare ore had a mysterious power and had always been the symbol of her family's glory. The girl knew this since she was young. However, for the sake of a good friend, she stole her family's treasure and betrayed her entire family. If Zicheng was in danger at that time and urgently needed this thing to save his life, it would make sense. At that time, Zicheng only needed that piece of meteorite to repair the divine weapon she brought out of the tomb of the gods. Although the ores that could repair divine weapons were rare in the world. However, to steal the family's treasure just to help a friend repair a divine weapon, it was believed that no noble girl who had been educated since she was young would do such a thing. This kind of symbolic treasure was unique to every family. As a noble girl who had been pampered since she was young, that girl's actions were too inconceivable. The strangest thing was that after that girl was chased out of the house, Zicheng said that it was all because of her. Therefore, in front of that girl, he swore that he would make that family regret driving her out. Chapter 114. Later on, Zicheng became more and more powerful. With a divine artifact in his hand, he ran to the family and severely injured the family's patriarch and elders. He even said that they were too cruel to the girl and that they were inhumane. She was taking revenge for the girl they had driven away. Now that he had beaten them up, both sides didn't owe each other anything. When he saw this, he only felt that the family deserved it. But now that he thought about it, what did they do? Was it wrong to drive out a sinner who had betrayed the family? Moreover, they only drove the girl out and didn't destroy her magic source. This was already much better than the other sinners who had been driven out of the family. That family's love for the girl was very deep. Otherwise, the girl's betrayal would have been enough to put her to death. However, they didn't expect that a moment of pity would bring such a big hidden danger to the family. After Zicheng left after injuring the family's people, the family was suppressed by many forces. The ones who attacked were all the supporting male leads who admired Zicheng. Those supporting male leads didn't show any mercy. A good family was gone just like that. After the family lost their power, they were all killed. It could be said that their end was very miserable. Originally, the family's patriarch and several elders were rare experts. But because they were injured by Zicheng, their foundation was damaged. For a short period of time, they couldn't fight with others. If it weren't for this, the family wouldn't have been destroyed so quickly. Zicheng didn't hide this matter from the girl. After the girl found out, she just said that she didn't have a family. The life and death of those people had nothing to do with her. Not only was she not sad, she was also secretly moved by everything that Zicheng had done for her. From then on, she became even more loyal. Was all of this normal? If the girl had been treated unfairly by the family since she was young, it was understandable that she didn't care about the life and death of the family. But she had been doted on since she was young. Which elder in the family didn't love and care for her? Even when she stole the family's treasure, they couldn't bear to kill her. Her family, who loved her so much, had died, but she was thanking the person who had indirectly harmed her family. If it was a normal person, no one would do such a thing. Irene was now certain that once the favorability value of the favorability system reached 100, that person's emotions would be affected by Zicheng. No matter what Zicheng did, those people would feel that it was right. This ability to manipulate people in the palm of his hand was too terrifying. Irene felt a chill run down her spine. Fortunately, she had read the book beforehand and knew the fate of the female lead's golden finger and this body's original body. If she had transmigrated into this body without knowing anything, she might have developed feelings for the female lead. In that case, What was the difference between her and Eve, who could only live around Zicheng? While Irene's thoughts were spinning, the others were discussing the list of names for this trip to the town. After Rika said that she wouldn't go, she sat there quietly, not saying anything else. Rika wasn't Eve. Wherever Zicheng went, she would follow. A large part of the reason she hung out with Zicheng was that Zicheng was a good person. Rika liked her gentle, considerate, and kind personality. However, she didn't have any good feelings towards Eve. I'm not going either. My strength isn't that high, so I'll stay here and wait for news. Tingyu wrinkled her cute little nose. Although she really wanted to go and watch the show, in order not to be a burden, it was better for her to wait here. Eve, you should stay here too. With your strength, it'll be very dangerous to go rashly. Seeing that the other party was also a girl, Elena chose to persuade her. If it was a guy who didn't understand the situation, she would definitely use her iron sand palm on him. No, I must go. I won't be at ease if little Cheng goes alone. Eve held on to Zicheng's hand, her little face full of stubbornness and determination. Elena and the others were silent. Was she treating them as if they weren't human? Suddenly, they felt like beating someone up. Urgent, waiting online, Senior Elena, let Eve go. I'll definitely look after her and won't let anything happen to her. Zicheng saw that Eve was so concerned about her, and she couldn't say no, so he could only say this to Elena. Pei Qing and Ting Feng exchanged glances. You'll look after her? When the time comes, I'm afraid you won't be able to protect yourself. Is there something wrong with this girl's brain? Senior Elena, if she wants to go, then let her go. When the time comes, we won't be blamed if anything happens to her. Pei Qing smiled like a fox. Don't worry, I can take care of myself. Eve glared hatefully at Pei Qing. She hated people who walked together with Fengwu from the bottom of her heart. There was a saying, hate the house, hate the crow. In the end, the people who would go to the small town together were decided. Other than Rika and Tingyu, everyone else would go. Fengwu was Liddy's master, so she definitely had to go. After reaching the small town, there would be many places where Liddy would be of use. This time, the boss threw caution to the wind and took the initiative to lead the way. Although the boss did business on the main road, his family still lived in the small town. According to Fengwu and the others, the small town was about to be flooded with blood. No matter what, the boss had to go and bring his family out. Behind the small inn, there was a carriage that the boss used to travel. This time, everyone got on the boss's carriage and headed to the small town together. An ordinary small carriage sped along the main road. There was a kind of deathly silence along the way. Even the usual sounds of insects and birds on both sides of the road couldn't be heard. Everyone's heart sank. They hoped that they could make it in time. After the carriage sped along for an hour, they finally arrived at the small town that the boss mentioned. Unexpectedly, the small town was very quiet. There were pedestrians bargaining and buying things on the street. There were also young mothers eating snacks on the street with their children. No matter how they looked at it, it didn't look like a big shot came to the small town. Not only Ming Shi and the others were confused, but even the boss was confused. Logically speaking, Princess Nana's beast carriage should be faster than their small carriage. How did they get ahead of Princess Nana? Boss, go home now and take your family out of here. After Ming Shi and the others entered the city, they immediately told the boss that this was what they had agreed on when they were in the carriage. The family members of the boss's servants were also here, and the boss had to take them all away. This workload was not to be underestimated. The boss nodded fiercely, then turned around and wanted to go home first and take the family members of his staff with him. Wait a minute. You can take anyone you want, but remember, you can't take those pregnant girls away. If you take them away, even if you escape with your family members, you won't be able to survive. Fengwu rarely said so much. Chapter 115 Of course, it wasn't Fengwu who said those words. It was Liddy who told Fengwu and asked Fengwu to pass it on to the boss. The boss, of course, agreed repeatedly. Then, he drove the car in the direction of his home and disappeared around the corner at the fastest speed possible. Spray the occult potion on them. It's obviously useless, but they still followed us in. How can they help when they can't see their spirit bodies? Liddy wasn't polite at all when she ordered people around. Now that they had encountered a supernatural incident, it was Liddy's home ground. If they wanted to save people, they had to listen to Liddy's words. Speaking of which, this feeling wasn't bad. It was a pity that they probably wouldn't have the chance to enjoy this kind of treatment in the future. Everyone agreed with Liddy's words. Wasn't it a little too early for these juniors to want to clear a high-level dungeon? Zicheng and Irene were a little better. At the very least, they had a certain level of strength. As for Eve, she was a cynical and brain-damaged young lady. As the only senior present, Elena's job of communicating with the juniors naturally fell to her. She told them about the occult potion. Zicheng and Irene readily agreed to drip the occult potion. Eve, on the other hand, had an ugly expression on her face for a full minute. Then, with Zicheng's persuasion, she reluctantly dripped the occult potion. Eve's reluctance was naturally seen by everyone. Their impression of her dropped again. They just couldn't bring themselves to like Eve. When the three of them were done drinking the potion, the world in their eyes changed. It was clear that the sky was clear and the sun was shining brightly. But now, they could see that the blue sky had turned red. This red color was too abnormal. It made people feel depressed just looking at it. In addition to the red, they could also see streaks of black. These streaks of black constantly drifted around the town. When the three girls suddenly saw this scene that could make ordinary people faint, their faces immediately turned as white as paper. Zicheng and Irene were a little better. After all, they were both people with strong minds. What a joke. If they fainted from such a scene, they wouldn't have the qualifications to be the transmigrating female lead and the counterattacking female lead. Of the three girls, the one who was the most helpless was naturally Eve. She was so scared that her legs went soft and she fell to the ground. She couldn't get up and she kept letting out ear-piercing screams. What's going on? Is this girl sick? Send her to the doctor. She's so sick, we can't delay her treatment. What's going on ahead? I don't know. I just got here. I also want to ask what happened. The townspeople who were attracted by Eve's screams surrounded Fengwu and the others and pointed at them. More and more people surrounded them, but Eve continued to scream without any awareness. Zicheng looked at the others awkwardly and quickly squatted beside Eve. She wanted to help her up. Most importantly, she couldn't let her scream anymore. Zicheng was a smart girl. She could already see that the seniors and Elena were getting more and more dissatisfied. Fengwu's people looked like they were going to make a fool of themselves. Irene, who she couldn't see through the most, looked like she didn't want to meddle in other people's business. Seeing everyone's reaction, she knew that if she didn't stop Eve, she would be angered by the seniors and the others. Zicheng thought that with her comforting, Eve would calm down quickly. She didn't expect Eve to continue screaming. She even pushed her best friend Zicheng away as if she had seen a ghost. Zicheng didn't expect Eve to hit her, so Eve's push was very successful. Zicheng, who was as beautiful as a little fairy, was pushed to the ground by Eve and rolled half a circle. Her beautiful clothes were dirty in an instant. She looked less beautiful and more miserable. Eve. Zicheng frowned. She felt a little helpless at Eve's ignorance. At the same time, she was also a little angry. Ever since she came to this world, she hadn't been taken advantage of by anyone. She didn't expect that the first person to hurt her would be her best friend. Although she was already dissatisfied with Eve, Zicheng was the female lead. As a strong female lead, how could she let others see through her thoughts so easily? Therefore, To outsiders, they could only see that Zicheng was confused and worried about being pushed down by her best friend. This girl was really kind-hearted. She was pushed down, but she still cared about her friend. Some of the onlookers who didn't know the truth started to have a good impression of Zicheng, who was wholeheartedly trying to help her friend. Didn't she see that there were so many people around the screaming girl, but only the purple-haired girl wanted to help? The others, who looked like decent people, didn't even want to help a weak girl. You really couldn't judge a book by its cover. Ming Shi, what do we do now? Elena, I don't know. Skycliff, I don't know these people. Ruglas and Arguros, I'm not online. Please leave a message if you have something to say. Ting Feng, Pei Qing, Ajur, as seniors, why didn't you do anything? Funwu girl, so noisy. After a round of eye contact, it was obvious that no one was good at dealing with the situation. In the end, Funwu felt that Eve was too noisy. She walked over and pressed on her mute acupoint. The piercing scream stopped. Eve, who had been screaming, found that she couldn't make a sound. She stared at Funwu in panic and hatred. Take her to take medicine. Master said to take medicine when sick. This girl must be sick. Look at how much pain she is screaming. Funwu girl nodded seriously. Everyone, the world finally quieted down. Seeing that there was no more drama to watch, the crowd finally dispersed. Although the town wasn't big, there were many residents. There were at least a few dozen people surrounding them, but they all left in 2 minutes. Although there were still people who glanced in their direction from time to time, it was still better than being in a small town. However, compared to being surrounded by people just now, this was already quite good treatment. Everyone expressed that if this was all, they could still tolerate it. After everyone left, Eve was pulled into a small alley. After she was out of sight, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. They regretted bringing Eve to this place. Funwu, what did you do to Eve? Why can't she talk? After Eve lost her voice, she regained all her rationality. When she remembered that it was all thanks to Funwu that she became like this, her eyes were filled with poison. From time to time, she wanted to kill Funwu with her gaze. Chapter 116. Eve wanted to ask what Funwu had done to her, but she couldn't make a sound, so naturally, she couldn't ask. She could only look at Zicheng for help. Zicheng was still very protective of his own people. Although he was already dissatisfied with Eve, he couldn't let others bully his own people. Thus, after receiving Eve's pleading gaze, Zicheng still helped Eve ask a question. Of course, when she asked, she didn't use an aggressive attitude. She just expressed her concern. There were others who were also curious about Funwu's move. What kind of magic was this? She just touched a person's body and they couldn't move. Was there such a magic that could freeze a person's body? I sealed her acupoints. After 2 hours, it will automatically unseal. Funwu glanced at Eve, ignoring her venomous gaze. It really was sealing her acupoints. Zicheng and Irene were both shocked by Funwu's answer. Zicheng, Irene, could it be that Funwu was also a transmigrator? But in the modern world, they hadn't heard of anyone who knew how to seal acupoints. Although sealing acupoints was a necessary scene in all Wuxia novels, it had never appeared in real life. The two people who originally suspected that Funwu was a transmigrator hesitated. It seemed that they still had to find an opportunity to test her. The female lead and the supporting female almost simultaneously made this decision in their hearts. Can you undo it now? Zicheng already had some thoughts about Funwu, but on the surface, others could only see her concern for her good friend from her face. It was impossible to guess that this girl's heart had already gone in circles. Yes. Funwu nodded. Then, after thinking for a while, she added, but I'm afraid she'll scream. It's really noisy. Don't undo it. Otherwise, our Xiao Wu will have to do it again. With her guts, I'm afraid that if something really happens, her throat will be broken from screaming. In order to not let her loud voice affect the rest of us, I personally suggest that we let her continue. What do you all think? Ting Feng didn't like Eve to begin with, especially the way she looked at Fengwu. It was as if she wanted to eat her alive. Now that there was a ready-made opportunity to mess with her, no matter what, she wouldn't let it go so easily. That's right. I'm a very sensitive person. If I hear her high-pitched scream in battle, it's very likely that it will affect my performance. This is a very big threat to my safety, so I agree with Ting Feng's suggestion. Pei Qing raised his hand and didn't want to fall behind. Ahem. Since everyone has agreed, then Junior Eve, you'll have to bear with it for a while. After 2 hours, you'll be able to speak again. It's fine. Although Elena was more tolerant towards girls, she didn't indulge them unconditionally. Eve's personality wasn't good, her temper was bad, and she had a lot of problems. Even Elena, who was tolerant towards girls, didn't like her. If she could make Eve calm down, Elena naturally didn't mind adding fuel to the fire. Senior. Zicheng wanted to persuade her again, but the others didn't give her the chance. They ignored Eve and began to discuss what to do next. Why? Why is it like this again? What's so good about that Fengwu? Why are you all protecting her like this? She's just a commoner, a damned commoner. Eve's heart was screaming crazily. She hated Fengwu to the core. She was disliked twice by the team because of Fengwu. This woman was her nemesis. No matter how much Eve hated Fengwu, other than Zicheng, no one else would look at her. Ming Shi and the others were all focused on discussing what to do next. At this moment, Aaron also noticed that the spirit named Lydia was actually a 12-year-old little girl. Moreover, she was a very cute little girl. It was quite pitiful for her to die at such a young age. After sympathizing a little with Liddy, Irene hurriedly cooperated with Elena to discuss what to do next. Let's go find those pregnant girls. I have something to confirm. In the end, it was still Liddy who made the decision. According to Ming Shi's suggestion, they should inform the mayor and arrange for the commoners to leave this town as soon as possible. Unfortunately, this idea was rejected by Liddy. You can't go. Everyone's fate in this world is predetermined. Many people here are destined to die today. Even if you let them escape, they will meet Princess Nana and the others on the way. At that time, they will only die faster. Ever since Liddy learned some knowledge about spirit cultivation, she had a certain understanding of some of the fates of life and death in this world. She knew that fate was irreversible. The reason she saved the boss's family was because she saw that the boss's fate was profound and wouldn't die so easily. However, this town was shrouded in blood. The possibility of escaping was too small. Even if they escaped, they would enter another death trap. Ming Shi and the others were still very unwilling. With so many lives, how could they not save them just like that? They couldn't bear to see so many innocent commoners die. Thus, Ming Shi decided to split into 2 groups. One group would go find those pregnant girls, and the other group would go to the mayor's house to prepare to ask the mayor to evacuate the commoners. There were only 2 people going to the mayor's house. One was Ming Shi, and the other was Elena. The others and Fengwu went to find the pregnant girls to understand what happened. After Ming Shi and Elena left, the others immediately moved. Zicheng agreed with what Liddy had said just now. Because she could get a chance to transmigrate, this made her believe that there really was fate in this world. Irene was somewhat dissatisfied. She didn't believe in fate. Even if Zicheng was destined to be the female lead, she would definitely succeed in her counterattack. Similarly, even if the people in this town were destined to die, so what? Humans could conquer the heavens. She didn't believe that she couldn't go against the will of heaven. Irene's fighting spirit was high. She really wanted to see if this town could really survive with the help of Ming Shi and the others. If the people in this town could be saved, Did this also prove that her counterattack against the female lead would eventually succeed? The town wasn't big. After walking for about 10 minutes, they arrived at the first house. The daughter of this house was already more than 5 months pregnant. Although it was only 5 months, her belly was so big that it looked like she was 8 or 9 months pregnant. It made people tremble in fear. After the girl's mother heard that Fengwu and the others were adventurers, she immediately welcomed them in as if she had seen hope. The girl's house was very old and dilapidated. It was obvious that the family situation was not very good. The girl who was brought out was only 18 years old, but her eyes were lifeless and lifeless. It was as if she was waiting for death. Chapter 117. Hello, we are the adventurers sent by the Adventurers Guild to help you. Could you please tell us what happened? Perhaps we can help your daughter. On the way here, Zicheng, who had the favorability system, was chosen as the person who asked the question because of her amiable image and her smooth way of handling things. Irene had no interest in the questioner at all. If it was an opportunity, she might be able to compete with Zicheng. But for the identity of the questioner, forget it. Irene expressed that she was not interested at all. The girl's mother wiped her tears and told Zicheng and the others everything that happened to her daughter. According to the mother, the girl suddenly became pregnant 5 months ago. After she became pregnant, her mental state was not good. She kept saying that she met the devil. She told her parents what happened in her dream. In the beginning, even her parents did not believe her. But that was normal. It was hard for any normal person to believe that it was just a dream. How could she suddenly become pregnant? After a series of events, many of the victims were found, and the parents naturally found that their daughters were not lying. If 1 or 2 of the girls said that, they could say that they were falsifying their testimonies. But if more than 10 of them said the same thing, it was impossible for them to have agreed beforehand. More than a dozen families had tried everything to save these children, but to no avail. Even the magicians they had hired at a high price were of no use. At the end of the story, the mother cried even more desperately. When she looked up again after crying, her eyes were frighteningly bright. Everyone could see that the mother had placed all her hopes on them. It was conceivable that if they failed, the mother would not be able to live on. What are you doing? The pregnant girl anxiously pulled her hand back. Because of her pregnancy, she had always been anxious, sensitive, and desperate. Even the slightest movement would scare her half to death. Zicheng and the others who were comforting the mother only noticed that Fengwu had unknowingly brought Lydie to the girl's side. The girl was very thin. She was so thin that she was out of shape. It was as if she was only left with a layer of skin and a big belly. Her mental state was very bad. She did not even have any energy left. Now that one of her hands was in Fengwu's hands, even struggling was very weak. Xiao Wu, what are you doing? Ruglaz asked in shock. Fengwu was usually well behaved. Why did she suddenly raise her hand to a pregnant woman today? Ajur, Pei Qing, and Ting Feng did not think so much. When they saw Fengwu grabbing the pregnant woman, they naturally wanted to help her. This. Sir Adventurer, why did you capture my daughter? She. It was clear that the frightened mother could no longer speak properly. She can still be saved, Fengwu suddenly said. What? The mother's eyes suddenly widened. Then, she quickly said, Are you serious, adventurer? Please save my daughter, please save her. Can you really save me? The girl's originally lifeless eyes had a glimmer of light. This glimmer of light represented the light of hope. Don't move. Fengwu held the girl's hand. In a place where no one could see or hear, Fengwu was communicating with Xiaochun, who was in her dantian. Xiaochun generously let Fengwu guide a small part of his power into the girl's belly. When a faint white light suddenly appeared on Fengwu's fingertips, everyone present noticed it. However, no one asked. The most important thing now was to save the girl. Nothing else mattered. The white light followed Fenwu's fingers and entered the girl's body. The girl felt very comfortable. The cold that had been pestering her since she was pregnant had disappeared just like that. She had not felt so warm in a long time. The girl was so happy that she wanted to cry. She never knew that she was so easily satisfied. Just a trace of warmth made her want to cry. When the girl was about to cry with joy, she suddenly felt something flowing out of her lower body. When she looked down, her skirt was already wet with black blood. At the same time, her belly was shrinking little by little. Oh my God! What's going on? The girl's mother was so scared that she almost fainted. This scene was too scary. A woman who was so thin that only her bones were left. Her lower body was still bleeding black blood. This was the scene of a horror movie. Fortunately, other than Zicheng and Irene, no one present had seen what a horror movie looked like. Mom, I'm fine. I'm finally fine. I can feel that the thing in my belly has finally left. It's finally not pestering me anymore. As soon as Fenwu's hand moved away, the girl immediately rushed into her mother's arms and cried like a child. It was as if she wanted to cry out all the grievances and fears of the past few months. After a small amount of black blood flowed out of the girl's belly, her belly finally returned to normal. The mother and daughter hugged each other and cried for a full 10 minutes. The girl's mother invited Fenwu and the others to eat. However, they had things to do, so they rejected the mother and daughter's kindness. Something big is going to happen today. You'd better lock yourselves in the room and seal all the doors and windows. Don't stay outside. If it rains, don't come into contact with the rainwater. Otherwise, your life will be in danger. Fenwu conveyed the message that Liddy had asked her to convey word for word. She didn't even put in any personal feelings. It was as if she was reading a textbook. Fortunately, Fenwu had already shown her skills and saved the girl. Therefore, whether it was the girl who was almost killed or the girl's mother, they treated Fenwu's words as if they were gods. After asking for the location of the other families, Fenwu and the others immediately went to the nearest family. The next family was similar to the previous one. They were not well off. Fenwu and the others simply asked about the situation and told them not to go out and not to get caught in the rain. They didn't dare to delay and went to the next family. When they reached the third family, they were still a step too late. The girl was about to give birth. The girl's screams came one after another. Her screams were filled with pain and despair, but no one could save her. The girl's family stayed by her side. Unfortunately, the family's concern couldn't give the girl more strength. A few minutes later, the girl's belly split open like a watermelon. A black baby flew out from her belly. Perhaps because the resentment was too strong, even the girl's parents saw this vengeful spirit that shouldn't be seen by ordinary people. Chapter 118. What is this? Ting Feng couldn't help but exclaim. Don't scare me, I'm a coward. Pei Qing immediately hid behind a jur. He had never seen such a terrifying aura from a baby. It was too scary. Ah! The black baby was surrounded by resentment, and its blood-red eyes were full of resentment and murderous intent. Eve was so scared that she fell to the ground. Her hand subconsciously tightened around Zicheng's skirt. If it wasn't for the fact that her acupuncture points had not been unsealed, she would have screamed out loud. Take them away immediately. Arguro said to Ruglas with an ashen face. Ruglas nodded fiercely, and then quickly moved to the girl's parents' side. He grabbed one in each hand and wanted to rush out of the house. Unfortunately, the vengeful spirit did not want them to do as they wished. The small black vengeful spirit flew to the door like smoke and blocked the only way out. From the murderous intent in its eyes, it could be seen that the vengeful spirit did not intend to let any of them leave. Demon! It really is a demon. The girl's mother screamed, and then she lost consciousness. Damn it! Ruglas cursed under his breath. It seemed that it was impossible to take two ordinary people away. He let go of the fainted woman and handed her to her husband, and told him to take his wife and stand further away. Only then did he draw his magic staff and get into a battle stance with the vengeful spirit. The dead girl's father was a man, after all, and would not be so easily frightened. He hurriedly took his wife and hid behind everyone, not daring to reveal their bodies. Fengwu and the others could see that the couple had misunderstood and thought that the vengeful spirit was some kind of monster. However, now was not the time to argue. If it was a monster, then so be it. With the vengeful spirit's current state, it was not much different from a monster. Other than the powerless couple and Fengwu, everyone in the house took out their weapons and prepared for the upcoming battle. "Let me do it," Skycliff whispered coldly, and then pulled out the long sword in his hand. A white sword aura flowed around the sword. The white sword aura seemed to carry an endless chill. The weather was not cold, but it made people feel as if it was winter. Sword intent. Among the people present, only Fengwu recognized what the white light was. The chill in the light was the sword intent of ice. Only when one's swordsmanship reached a certain level and had a strong perception, could they have the opportunity to comprehend sword intent. To comprehend the sword intent of ice at Skycliff's age was really a genius among geniuses. The others did not know that Skycliff's sword intent. Except for Fengwu, Skycliff, and Ting Feng, the rest were either ordinary people or magicians. As for Ting Feng, with his current strength, it was impossible for him to possess his own sword intent. Even if he had heard of the concept of sword intent, there was no way he would be able to recognize someone else's sword intent. Fengwu was able to recognize it because she was also an expert who possessed sword intent in her previous life. Although Arguros and the others did not know that Skycliff used sword intent, they could feel the chill of the sword and the threatening momentum. They knew that this sword was not ordinary. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Tianya finally attacked with his sword. This sword attack was accompanied by a sky full of ice and snow. Snowflakes actually appeared in the room. It was very beautiful. However, each snowflake was filled with boundless killing intent. No matter how beautiful the sword attack was, it was not pleasing to the eyes. When the sword attacked the vengeful spirit did not dodge. It just floated in the air. The little vengeful spirit cried out twice, and its small body welcomed the long sword in Skycliff's hand. Just when everyone thought that the little vengeful spirit would definitely die under Skycliff's sword, something unexpected happened. Skycliff's long sword actually passed through the vengeful spirit's body. Instead, the little vengeful spirit's small palm, which was filled with boundless resentment, almost slapped Skycliff. No one would believe that the small palm had no lethality. If it really hit, even if it did not die, it would be seriously injured. What's going on? Why is it useless? Irene exclaimed. She did not expect that Skycliff's powerful sword could not hurt such a small thing. Because the things that happened in the town were not written in the novel, Irene had read a fragment of the novel that mentioned this town. However, as for what exactly happened in this town, even the author did not write it, let alone Irene. Now that something like a vengeful spirit appeared in the town, the first thing that came to Irene's mind was a Taoist priest and a talisman. Unfortunately, whether it was a person or an item, it was impossible for these two things to appear on this continent. On this continent, there were also people who specialized in dealing with spirits. They were necromancers. Although these necromancers' methods of dealing with spirits were not the same as those on Earth, they were still very useful. If she had known earlier, she would have definitely gotten a few necromancy magic books to study. Who would have thought that this vengeful spirit would be so difficult to deal with? Irene was not the only one who thought this way. Zicheng also regretted that he did not learn necromancy magic. If he had known that there would be a day when he would have to deal with the undead, he would definitely have used his favorability points to exchange for a necromancy magic book. Of course it's useless. What do you think the undead are? The attacks of you ordinary mages or swordmasters cannot hurt us spirits. If you want to hurt a spirit, you either have to have a weapon that can hurt the soul, or you have to know necromancy magic. Your current magic is not a problem to deal with humans and other races, but it is impossible to deal with the undead. Liddy floated to the side of Funwu and the others at this time, and said in a tone that was exasperated that they did not live up to her expectations. Liddy also did not expect these guys to be so stupid. Wasn't this problem obvious? If ordinary mages' magic could hurt the undead, then what was the use of necromancers? Were they just for show? After being despised by Liddy, everyone was silent. They really did not think of this point. If what Liddy said was true, then wouldn't they only be beaten up? Does this mean that we can only stand here and be beaten up? Zicheng frowned. Unfortunately, before Liddy could say anything, the baby vengeful spirit attacked everyone with a strong aura of resentment. Since they could not hit the vengeful spirit with their attacks, they could only dodge. However, it was useless to dodge. Eve, Zicheng, Irene, and Ting Feng, who were the weakest among them, were quickly hit by the baby vengeful spirit. This small slap was really powerful. The four of them fainted after a while. Their bodies were still emitting black aura of resentment. Although the aura of resentment was not as dense as the vengeful spirit, it still dyed their skin black. It looked as though they were poisoned. Chapter 119. Liddy, think of a way. Arguros yelled at Liddy while dodging the little ghost baby's flying kick. It was not easy. The ghost baby did not attack Liddy at all, perhaps because they were both spirits. Liddy simply stood aside and watched the show. Funwu was also having an easy time. Funwu received the least amount of attacks. The others were attacked 4 or 5 times, but she was only attacked once. She was really biased. Xiao Wu, be careful. See if there's any way to eliminate this spirit. Although Ajur's flames could not kill the undead, they could still restrain it. The second person that the little ghost rarely attacked was Ajur. Got it. Funwu nodded and asked Liddy a few questions. Liddy and Funwu had always had a good relationship. After answering Funwu's questions, she obediently flew in the air and watched the show without any intention of helping. Funwu pondered for a moment, then suddenly shouted at the few people who were busy dodging, "Get out of the way." Although they did not know what Funwu wanted to do, they still dodged to the side obediently, leaving a large space in the middle for the Funwu girl to show off. Funwu did not disappoint them. After everyone dodged, an ancient sword exuding an ancient aura appeared in Funwu's hand. That's right, the sword was Xiaochun, who had not shown his face for a long time. Xiaochun was very happy to be able to come out and play. The sword hummed cheerfully from time to time, and did not hide its strangeness at all. Ajur's expression changed when he saw the sword, but he quickly returned to normal. The others also felt that the sword was very extraordinary, but they could not tell what was so extraordinary about it. On the other hand, the expert swordsman Tianya had some guesses about the sword, but he didn't say anything. He wasn't someone who liked to meddle in other people's business. He didn't have the time to pry into other people's secrets. Xiaochun's appearance made the originally arrogant vengeful spirit that was jumping around suddenly quiet down. Its small body began to tremble, as if it was very afraid of Xiaochun. Funwu held the pure sword and approached the vengeful spirit step by step. Unexpectedly, the little vengeful spirit was clearly trembling in fear, but it did not try to escape. This was too abnormal. Everyone was puzzled, but they did not ask. Funwu walked to a place not far from the little vengeful spirit, and directly slashed at the little vengeful spirit. The little vengeful spirit instantly let out a shrill scream. The scream was very ear-piercing, as if it was going to shatter people's eardrums. The screams made everyone feel dizzy and flustered. Fortunately, the screams didn't last long. Everyone thought that the powerful vengeful spirit had been scattered, but they didn't expect that after the screams ended, the vengeful spirit was gone and there was a normal baby spirit body. The little spirit body was normal white, and its eyes were a little confused, as if it did not understand why it had appeared here. Then, it seemed to have thought of something, and looked at Fenwu with a grateful and apologetic gaze, like a child who had done something wrong and was waiting to be scolded by the teacher. "It's okay. Be careful next time, and don't make a mistake again." Fenwu looked at the new little spirit body, and said with a gentle and serious gaze. The little spirit body nodded, and then it turned into a white light and disappeared. The spirit body disappeared, and the pure sword in Fenwu's hand also returned to Fenwu's body. The 6 people lying on the ground, including the owner and his wife, Irene, Zicheng, Eve, and Ting Feng, all woke up. They were originally trapped by the vengeful spirit's vengeful energy, and that was why they fainted. After the little vengeful spirit was purified, the vengeful energy in their bodies naturally disappeared, and they woke up. "Thank you, adventurers, thank you so much." After experiencing the tragic death of their beloved daughter and almost being eaten, the pitiful couple seemed to have aged a few years. Even their vitality was gone. "You're welcome. Something big will happen outside later. Remember to hide in the house. No matter what you hear, don't come out. If it rains, don't come into contact with the rainwater, or your life will be in danger." Arguros repeated what he said in the previous 2 houses. They didn't have much time, and they didn't have that much time to stay in this place. The couple nodded repeatedly. Fenwu and the rest called out to the few people who had just woken up, and they didn't dare to delay any longer. They rushed to the next house to continue saving people. "What happened just now? Did you guys destroy that powerful vengeful spirit?" Ting Feng asked Pei Qin curiously about what happened just now. He only remembered that he was slapped by a despicable little vengeful spirit, and then his whole body turned cold. After that, he didn't know anything else. Who knew that when he regained consciousness, the battle was already over? He didn't even see anything, so why did it end just like that? Ting Feng couldn't take it anymore, and grabbed Pei Qin to ask him questions. "It wasn't destroyed. It should have reincarnated. You can ask Liddy about the details. I can't explain it clearly either. I didn't even understand it myself." Pei Qin glanced at him coldly. He flung his hair back and strode forward, ignoring the talkative Ting Feng. Ting Feng had no choice but to obediently ask Liddy about what happened. Those who had fainted weren't the only ones who were curious about what happened just now. Even those who were still standing wanted to know what was going on. Why did the vengeful spirit suddenly become better? Also, what happened to the vengeful spirit? Why was it in the girl's stomach? With so many questions, they all wanted Liddy to help them answer them. Actually, that vengeful spirit was originally an ordinary spiritual body. After we die, we become spiritual bodies and can reincarnate. As for where we reincarnate, we will naturally sense it when we reincarnate. When the time comes, even if we don't want to go, there will be a force that will pull us there. Of course, spiritual bodies like me don't need to reincarnate. In order to reincarnate, besides being a spiritual body, the spiritual body can't have any resentment. A spiritual body with resentment can't be reincarnated. Vengeful spirits are the spiritual bodies of babies. Some babies die not long after they are born due to various reasons, and some can't even wait to be born. They are deprived of the right to be born while they are still in their mother's body. Everyone listened to Liddy as they walked. It was the first time they heard that people could reincarnate after death. After all, necromancers were extremely mysterious. They couldn't just casually tell others what they knew. Chapter 120. Their souls are already full of resentment. As long as the resentment is not too deep, the resentment will slowly dissolve on its own. Once the resentment is dissolved, they can be reincarnated. Unfortunately, these little baby spirits were unlucky. Before the resentment was dissolved, they encountered these girls who were tricked. These girls were not pregnant at all. They were just injected with a trace of demon breath. This trace of demon breath will attract the baby spirits into the girls' bodies. After the baby spirits enter, they will think that they have been reincarnated and quietly wait for the moment of their birth in their mother's body. When they are born, they will find that they have been deceived. Not only did they not succeed in reincarnating, but they were also infected with demon breath. The baby spirits originally had resentment, and now they were infected with demon breath. It would be strange if they did not turn completely black. When the baby spirits completely turn into resentful spirits, the first thing they will do is to take revenge on their mother. This is because the fake mother tricked them into entering her body, so they were infected with demon breath and lost the chance to reincarnate. Wait, I have a question. Why would someone plant demon breath in the bodies of those girls? Is this good for that person? Arguros asked with interest. Of course it is good. Do you know how the so-called demon is born? Demons are born from the 7 emotions and 6 desires of human beings. Spirits full of strong resentment and hatred are the best tonic for demons. I only had some doubts at first, but now I can be sure that there is a powerful demon who is probably seriously injured. He used this method to create resentful spirits. As long as he eats those resentful spirits, his strength will slowly recover. At that time, there will be one more demon in the world. Wait, how come I heard that demons are formed by the gods? After divinity is contaminated, demons exist. So how can demons be formed by the 7 emotions and 6 desires of human beings? That's not right. Ruglaz said and shook his head. Apparently, he did not agree with Liddy's statement. Are you a pig? You are talking about the ancient gods and demons. How can the low-level demons in the demon realm be transformed from gods? Do you think gods are cabbages? Liddy couldn't stand it and started to roar. I'm sorry, Liddy. This guy always flies at a low altitude in theory class. Don't worry about him. Go on, go on. Argyros quickly pulled Ruglaz, who was confused about the situation, back to reality. Just tell him to pay attention in class. Look, he can't even figure out common sense questions and embarrass himself. Ruglaz also knew that he had probably made a fool of himself this time, so he obediently allowed himself to be dragged away. Liddy, are you saying that the children in the wombs of the girls are actually the demon's food? Does that mean that the demon will come to town to look for the girls? Zicheng directly grasped the main point of the matter. Eve was so scared that she shrunk her neck and hid behind Zicheng's back. She didn't even dare to say a word. She was really scared this time. Yeah, it will definitely come. After waiting for so long, isn't it just waiting for the fruit to be harvested? Liddy said nonchalantly. After figuring out the truth of the girl's pregnancy, everyone's hearts didn't relax. Instead, they were even more nervous. A demon, and according to Liddy's words, this demon had a lot of tricks up its sleeves. This was going to be tricky. The few of them moved forward in silence. Everyone felt a little heavy in their hearts. They noticed that along the way, there were people rushing out with bags of various sizes. Even if they weren't rushing out, their doors and windows would be tightly shut. Everyone knew that Ming Shi and Elena must have successfully gotten the mayor to agree to send the townspeople away. Sure enough, not long after, Ming Shi and Elena returned to the group. The few of them exchanged their experiences. In fact, it was mainly Arguros who talked about what they encountered, especially the part where they dealt with the vengeful spirit. Just like that, the group visited a few families. They saved everyone they could, including the daughter of the innkeeper's good friend. The girl was lucky enough to meet a pair of good parents. The parents knew from their good friend that something big was going to happen and that they might lose their lives. However, after hearing that they couldn't take their daughter away, the whole family decided to stay. They didn't want their daughter to die alone at home. Fortunately, the girl was saved thanks to Fenwu's arrival. The whole family hugged each other and cried bitterly. After telling them to close the doors and windows carefully and not get caught in the rain, the group continued to move on to the next house. Wait, it's going to rain soon. Fenwu suddenly stopped in her tracks. Is Princess Nana about to enter town? Ajur was indeed the person who understood Fenwu the best. He could guess what was going on with just one sentence from Fenwu. It's so slow. We don't even know which path the princess came from. We've been here for so long. Ting Feng wrinkled her nose. Stop talking. Let's find a place to hide from the rain. Ming Shi ordered. Everyone found the nearest inn and walked in. This small town was very close to the two-realm battlefield. Every year, quite a number of adventurers would come to this town to rest. Thus, there were quite a few inns and restaurants in this small town. These were all used for adventurers and mercenaries. Not long after Fenwu and the others hid in the inn, a basin of heavy rain poured down. The sky darkened. Darkness descended. It was clearly daytime, but it was like night. In the eyes of Fenwu and the others, the world seemed to have turned red. Red rain, red sky, and black fog fluttered in the red sky from time to time. Mournful screams entered everyone's ears. It's Princess Nana. She's here. Elena clenched the sword in her hand tightly. In the heavy rain, the people who had planned to leave had no choice but to retreat into their houses and close their doors and windows. Most of the people outside were drenched in the rain. That was because they were close to home. They didn't mind. They went home and changed their clothes, preparing to leave immediately after the rain stopped. Unfortunately, they didn't know that most of them couldn't wait until that moment. This might be the last time they saw rain in their lives. Princess Nana had arrived in town. The mayor naturally had to personally welcome her. He personally sent the princess to the manor where the royal family was resting. Only then did the mayor leave with a large umbrella. Half an hour later, the rain stopped, and the sky was bright again. The people continued to pack their things and planned to leave the town to seek refuge. Not long ago, the mayor gathered the townspeople and told them something. Some adventurers said that something big was going to happen in this town, so they were going to seek refuge for a period of time. They would return after things had calmed down. Most of the townspeople were ordinary people. They didn't know magic, nor did they cultivate Do Chi. They were still very respectful to those powerful adventurers. After hearing the mayor's words, most of them decided to leave. Only a few people felt that they didn't want to leave their hometown and didn't plan to seek refuge. Chapter 121. None of them would have thought that it was already too late to leave. The bloody massacre was about to begin. What do we do now? Eve anxiously pulled on Zicheng's sleeve. She regretted it. If she had known that this place was so dangerous, she would have chosen to rest at the inn like Rika. Just as she was thinking about this, another voice suddenly rang out in her heart. She couldn't leave Zicheng alone. Zicheng was her best friend. She had to protect Zicheng. Even if she had to sacrifice her own life, she had to protect him. This voice was incomparably firm. The little bit of unease in her heart was quickly replaced by that firm voice. Let's go guard Princess Nana's resting place. That demon is definitely by her side. Ajur said. Alright, we'll split into two groups. Half of us will guard Princess Nana, and the other half will continue saving those girls. Ming Shi made his decision. Everyone expressed their agreement. Thus, Fenwu and the rest of the expert team went to continue saving those girls, while Ming Shi led the majority of the team to guard Princess Nana. When it was raining, Liddy had said that this town was about to become chaotic. They didn't have much time left. The two groups split up. Ming Shi led the majority of the team to guard Nana's manor, while Fenwu and Ajur went to look for the next victim. They only hoped that they could save a few more people in a short amount of time. Fortunately, the next house wasn't far from the inn where Fengwu and the rest were taking shelter from the rain. They had just reached the door of that house when they heard the sound of an argument coming from inside. "Let me go, Mom. I have to go find the princess. The princess is in danger. I have to go find her." A nasal cry came from inside the door. This voice sounded very young, no older than 20 years old. From the voice, it could be heard that the owner of this voice had been crying for a long time. Even his voice had changed. "Where else can you go? Now, those people in town are looking at our family like they're looking at monsters. If you go out, those people's saliva will drown you. Why do you still care about the princess?" A middle-aged woman's exasperated voice sounded from inside the door. "I can't leave the princess alone. The princess has treated me well. No matter what, I have to find the princess and make things clear." The young man's voice was very firm. "No, I said no means no. If the princess knows the truth, do you think the princess will let you go? Will she let us go?" The woman's voice was filled with anger and fear. Fengwu, Ajur, and the others looked at each other and knocked on the door. Perhaps it was too noisy inside, but no one came to open the door. It was Ajur who knocked on the door a few times to attract the people inside. "Who are you people?" The person who opened the door was a middle-aged woman. The woman's face was a little old, but her clothes looked better than the people in front of her. The woman looked at Feng Wu and the others with obvious suspicion and wariness in her eyes. Ajur and the others didn't think there was anything wrong with the woman's gaze. Before the people in front of them cured their daughters, they also looked at them with nervous and cautious eyes. Ever since their relatives were pregnant with this child, these families had been living under the criticism of others. There were even some extremists who would pour animal blood and feces in front of their doors. After a long time, these families were naturally wary and careful of outsiders. "Hello, we are people sent by the Adventurers Guild to help you." Pei Qing smiled warmly and took the initiative to take over the diplomatic work. "The Adventurers Guild? You are people sent by the Adventurers Guild? How come we didn't know that the mayor went to the Adventurers Guild to post a mission?" The woman still didn't believe it. Although the mayor of their town was a good person, he wouldn't pay for something like this out of his own pocket. For example, when they invited the magicians from the Magicians Guild, every family in the town paid for it, especially those with daughters. After all, no one knew which girl would be the next victim, so everyone paid for it. Of course, the ones who paid the most were the families who had already been persecuted. This time, she didn't hear anything, and didn't see the mayor send anyone to take the money. The mayor wasn't a selfless person who would sacrifice himself for others. It was impossible for her to believe that the mayor paid for it out of his own pocket unless he was possessed. "It's not a mission from the mayor, it's from the owner of a small hotel outside of town. He wants us to help the people in the town. We've already paid a visit to a few other families, and we've saved all the people we can. The children in their wombs have also been taken care of. Why don't you let us see your daughter first? The longer we wait, the more dangerous it will be." "It's him." The woman nodded. She was a little convinced now. She knew the owner of the small hotel, and he was a good person. He even took in children from poor families in the town to work in his hotel. In their town, the owner had always been a good person. "Please come in. I'll bring my daughter out now." After the woman believed it, she immediately opened the door and welcomed Fengwu and the others in. Fengwu and the others followed the woman into the courtyard. The courtyard was very clean, and the environment was very good. It could be seen that this family was at least a middle-class or upper-middle-class family in the town. If they didn't encounter the incident with her daughter, their lives would be better than most people in the town. The woman's daughter was brought out with a big belly. The woman called her Xiaolan. Xiaolan was a very beautiful girl. She didn't look very energetic, and her belly was already very big. If they had come a day or two later, this girl would have been like the daughter of the previous family. They couldn't save her. They helped Xiaolan purify the devil energy in her belly. Without the devil energy trapping the baby spirit in Xiaolan's belly quickly flew out of Xiaolan's belly. After Xiaolan expelled the black blood in her body, her belly quickly flattened and gradually returned to its normal state. Xiaolan looked at her flat belly and cried until she was out of breath. With a plop, she knelt in front of Fengwu. "Adventurer, please save the princess. Princess Nana is in danger. Please save her." Xiaolan knelt on the ground and kowtowed desperately to Fengwu. Ajur and Pei Qing exchanged glances. It seemed that Xiaolan knew something. "Get up first, Miss Xiaolan. Can you tell us what's going on? We just met Princess Nana today. Isn't she fine? How can she be in danger?" Pei Qing gently pulled Xiaolan up. He was good-looking to begin with, and now he had purposely made his voice very gentle. Chapter 122. This gentle action and voice made Xiaolan blush. She even forgot to struggle as she was pulled up. "Xiaolan, take your time to tell the lords. I'll go get some water for you." Seeing that her daughter had recovered, the woman's mood improved. Only then did she realize that she hadn't poured water for the guests. After saying this, she left the living room to get some water. The few of them didn't care about the woman's departure. Right now, their attention was on Xiaolan. "Miss Xiaolan, do you know something?" Ting Feng heard Xiaolan's tone and knew that there was a story to hear. She seemed a little impatient. Xiaolan blushed. "Don't call me miss. I'm not a miss. Lords, just call me Xiaolan." After saying that, she smiled shyly. "All right, Xiaolan. Can you tell us what you know? What happened to Princess Nana? Just now, at your doorstep, I heard you and your mother talking. It seems like something big happened to Princess Nana." Ajur also wanted to know what happened. In order to successfully get some useful information from Xiaolan, when he spoke, he deliberately made his voice sound more gentle. "Lords, please take a seat. Let's sit down and talk." Xiaolan invited Fengwu and the others to sit. At this time, Xiaolan's mother had just finished brewing the fruit tea. After pouring a cup of tea for each of them, Xiaolan's mother sat down beside Xiaolan. "I was born in this small town. When I was young, my family was very poor. We almost couldn't survive. My mother gave birth to a younger brother. In order to reduce the family's burden, I was sold to a rich family to be a servant. At that time, I was only 6 years old. I was very young. Many rich families didn't want to use such a young child. I was very lucky. At that time, the palace was planning to take in a group of young maids. I and a few other young children were very lucky to be chosen to enter the palace. Life in the palace was like heaven. Although we had to learn a lot of rules every day, we could eat our fill every day. We lived very happily. A year later, a girl called Xiao Na and I were assigned to Nana's side. We became Princess Nana's maids. The princess was very good. She took good care of us. From time to time, she would reward us. The princess rewards made our lives better and better. We built a house and opened a shop. My brother could also go to school to learn the things he liked. If it wasn't for my brother being bitten by a poisonous snake half a year ago and me returning home to give him medicine, perhaps everything that happened later wouldn't have happened." Xiaolan cried as she spoke. Xiaolan's mother seemed to know something as well. Her tears kept flowing, and the atmosphere between the mother and daughter was very heavy. "Half a year ago, my brother was bitten by a poisonous snake. The town's doctors could only barely control the poison. They couldn't treat my brother's poison at all. In order to treat my brother, my mother asked someone to send a letter to me. After I begged the princess, I received a bottle of antidote. The princess was very good. She especially allowed me to leave and let me go back to give my brother medicine. With the medicine given by the princess, my brother's poison was quickly cured. Although my brother and I didn't see each other often, our relationship was very good. After he saw me, he said that he wanted me to accompany him for a few more days. So, I stayed. On the third day after my brother was cured, a small group of mercenaries appeared in the town. They had just come out of the two-realm battlefield and obtained many good things. They set up a stall in the town to sell. I remembered that my brother was studying, so I spent 30 gold coins to buy a small sword for him. Although the sword came from the two-realm battlefield, it didn't have any spirituality. Because the materials used were not bad, it was still worth 30 gold coins. The night after I bought the small sword, I began to dream. I dreamed of a man. He was very good-looking. I had never seen such a good-looking person. He said that he was a prince from some ancient country. He fell in love with me at first sight and wanted me to be his princess. I grew up in the palace and have seen all three princes. How could a real prince fall in love with someone so casually? At that time, I only treated this dream as a joke. After that, I had the same dream for a few days. In the dream, he accompanied me to chat and play chess with me. He even taught me how to use a sword. He was very knowledgeable. Later, I gradually became attracted to him in the dream. One night, he said that he wanted to do it with me and I. Xiaolan couldn't continue. She gritted her teeth and continued. At that time, I didn't agree. I wasn't a casual girl. How could I do it with a man before marriage? But after a few days, his attitude became more and more intense. After I rejected him, he didn't appear for a whole month. I was very afraid that he would never come back. Finally, after a month, he appeared again. I agreed and did it with him. At that time, I thought it was just a beautiful dream. But after I did it with him, he never appeared in my dream again. Not long after, I found out that I was pregnant. At that time, I only felt like a bolt from the blue. I clearly only had an erotic dream. How could I be pregnant? This is too inconceivable. It's too hard to believe. Xiaolan cried as she spoke. It was obvious that the memory was very unbearable to her. I was pregnant, so I naturally couldn't stay by the princess's side to serve. The palace has its own rules. I was also the princess's maid. If it was discovered that I was pregnant before marriage, it would only affect the princess's reputation. So I returned to the palace and told the princess that my mother had found a good marriage for me. I hoped that the princess could let me out of the palace to get married. The princess has always been good to me. She agreed to my request. Not only did she let me out of the palace, she also gave me a small box of jewelry as a dowry. The princess always thought that I was really going to get married. How could she know that I was afraid of implicating the princess because I had a scandal? So I had to leave her side. In order to find out what was wrong with my body, I saw a lot of doctors in the city. Those doctors all said that I was pregnant. But how could this be? I clearly didn't do anything. It was just a dream. Later, I went to see a priest and let the priest check my body. But the conclusion made me despair. I returned home in a daze. I didn't know what to do at all. At that time, I heard that there were several girls in the town who were pregnant. My matter was naturally known by the townspeople. The townspeople thought that our behavior was improper. We seduced a passing adventurer and got pregnant with a bastard. So many scandals happened in the village at the same time. Naturally, we girls were caught and locked in a room. The mayor asked us to confess our adulterers. But where did this adulterer come from? Chapter 123. We told the mayor about what happened to us, but none of the townspeople believed us. After talking to each other, I realized that the experiences of those girls were very similar to mine. We all got pregnant in our dreams, and the man in our dreams was the same person. As time passed, more and more girls were sent in. Until one day, a girl couldn't stand being pointed at anymore. She killed herself with a sword. At that time, the girls who were locked in the same room were scared to death. We all thought that the girl was dead for sure, but we didn't expect that not only did she not die, but the wounds on her body also healed quickly. It turned out that even death was an extravagant hope for us. We fell into even more despair. At that time, the townspeople finally realized that what happened to us wasn't simple. Everyone pooled their money together and hired a magician. Unfortunately, it was useless. No one could tell what was wrong with us. After that, the princess came. In order to prevent people from finding out that such a scandal had happened in the town, we were all taken back by our families and locked in our homes. I really wanted to see the princess, but how could I have the face to see her in this state? The princess didn't stay for long before she went to the two-realm battlefield to train. After the princess left, there were no more pregnant girls in the town. At that time, I realized that something was wrong. The man in my dreams might have left with the princess. When I met with the man in my dreams, I mentioned Princess Nana more than once. He seemed to be very interested in Princess Nana and asked me many things about the princess. At that time, I shouldn't have told him. I was the one who harmed the princess. He must have pestered the princess. The more Xiao Lan spoke, the more regretful she felt. She regretted it more than once. If she hadn't bought that little sword, then none of this would have happened. It was all her fault. She had brought disaster to this town. She had harmed so many pitiful girls in the town, and she had also harmed the Princess Nana who she was indebted to. You're saying that all of this started when you bought that little sword? Can you let us see that sword? A juror said. I've been keeping that sword safe, thinking that one day it might come in handy in the guild. Wait for me, I'll be right back. Xiao Lan wiped her tears and got up to go back to her room to get something. After a few minutes, Xiao Lan came back with a wooden box. There was a lock on the box. After Xiao Lan opened the box, a small black sword appeared in the wooden box. The small sword didn't have any energy fluctuations. It was obvious that it was an ordinary weapon that had lost its power. Aside from the fact that the materials used to make the sword were not bad, it was just like Xiao Lan said. No matter how one looked at it, it was just an ordinary small sword. This isn't a normal sword. The material used to make this sword is the very rare soul-nurturing wood. The spirit lives in the soul-nurturing wood, and the spirit can be nurtured. It is a very precious divine wood. Just when everyone thought that it was just a normal little sword, Fengwu suddenly opened her mouth to speak. She recognized the material used to make this sword because when she was at Mount Yuehua, Fengwu had seen a sword made of soul-nurturing wood. That sword was much bigger than this one. Her master didn't have any other hobbies. His biggest hobby was to collect all the famous swords in the world, as well as swords made of rare materials. A sword made of soul-nurturing wood was very rare. If it wasn't for this, Fengwu's master wouldn't have placed the sword in his own hidden sword tower. Soul-nurturing wood. Is there such a thing in this world? How come I've never heard of it? Ting Feng shook her head. She searched every corner of her mind, but couldn't find any information about soul-nurturing wood. So that demon has always been living in the soul-nurturing wood? A juror guessed. No, only the spirit can enter it. No matter if it's a human or a demon, as long as they have a physical body, they can't enter the soul-nurturing wood. Fengwu shook her head with a solemn face. So that's why that demon doesn't have a physical body. No wonder he wants to use this method to recover. It turns out that he doesn't even have a physical body. Pei Qing sneered. Can you give me this sword? Fengwu asked Xiao Lan. Master saved Xiao Lan. Xiao Lan doesn't know how to repay you. Since Master likes this item, please take it. Xiaolan handed the little sword to Fengwu. Xiaolan has a request. Master, please agree. Xiaolan said with pleading eyes. I'll say it first. Ajur didn't agree right away. He wanted to hear what Xiaolan wanted. I have a letter here. I wanted to ask someone to give it to the princess, but because I couldn't leave home, I couldn't send the letter. This time, I want to ask for your help. Can you help me send the letter to the princess? If she could deliver the letter herself, Xiaolan wouldn't want to trouble others. However, she was no longer the princess's first-class maid. As the saying goes, the tea cools down when the person leaves. The princess already had a new person by her side. Xiao Na's relationship with her had never been good. She would only pretend to be harmonious in front of the princess. With Xiao Na blocking her, it was easier said than done to see the princess. This time, she finally met a few people with real ability. She only hoped that these people could help the princess. Okay. Ajur didn't think that her request would be so simple. He nodded and agreed. The subordinate told Xiaolan's family to close the doors and windows. No matter who came, they shouldn't open the door. They shouldn't run outside. The few of them left Xiaolan's house. The harvest this time was very big. No one would have thought that there was an insider living in the small town. Originally, the few of them wanted to go to another house to save people. But at this time, they heard a frightened scream from not far away. Save me. Murder. Save me. Crazy. These people have all gone crazy. Murder. Everyone run for your lives. Son, what are you doing? I'm your mother. How can you kill me? Dear, look at me. I'm your wife. What are you doing? Don't kill me. The small town was filled with the smell of blood. All kinds of screams, cries for help, and cries echoed throughout the small town. The small town that was originally peaceful suddenly became a purgatory on earth. Some people ran away. Some people were in a killing frenzy. They killed and chopped at anyone they saw. They didn't even let their own children go. They seemed to have lost their own consciousness. There was only killing left in their minds. What's going on? Ting Feng was shocked. This scene changed too quickly. Those people were drenched in the rain. Their minds have already been controlled by the resentment. Even if we save them, they won't be able to live. The little spirit Liddy said. Do you want to save them? Pei Qin asked. Other than Xiao Wu, none of you can save them. Liddy bluntly spat out. Couldn't the truth be said more tactfully? It's very hurtful, don't you know? Chapter 124. Under the watchful eyes of Ajur and the rest, Fengwu wielded her sword and unleashed a few streaks of sword qi. Those people who had gone on a killing spree fell to the ground one by one. Those who couldn't escape in time cried and thanked Fengwu before running back to their homes as fast as they could. Let's go and find Senior Ming Shi and the rest first. Ajur frowned as he looked at the street filled with corpses. Along the way, they could hear screams, cries for help, screams, and the cries of children. This place had turned from an ordinary town where everyone lived and worked peacefully into a massacre hell. Those people had lost their minds and only knew how to kill. Those who were killed by them would quickly get up and continue killing until everyone around them was killed. Only then would the massacre stop. Fengwu and the rest saved many people as they walked. Those who were saved all hid in their homes and blocked the doors and windows. Even if they were saved temporarily, they didn't dare to relax. The paradise they lived in had turned into hell. As long as they were in this town, they wouldn't be safe. When Fengwu and the rest finally arrived at the manor where Princess Nana was temporarily staying, the manor was just like the town. It was filled with the stench of blood and slaughter. All around them were humans who had gone berserk. They didn't fear death and killed anyone they saw. More than half of Princess Nana's guards had been infected by resentment. Their minds had been controlled by resentment and they had become zombies. Most of the people in the manor had died in the hands of those guards. When Ajur and the rest arrived, they saw Ming Shi and the rest helping the guard commander Leafman deal with those humans who had been controlled by resentment. Princess Nana was hiding behind Leafman. Her two maids, Xiao Na and Mayer, were protecting the princess. Although their faces were pale and they looked frightened, they still did their duty to protect Princess Nana. This was the first time Princess Nainai had revealed her face in front of others. Princess Nainai was indeed a great beauty. She had snow-white skin, deep-set eyes, and sexy lips. No matter how one looked at her, she was a great beauty that could captivate one's soul. However, no one would want to admire her beauty at a time like this. Skycliff used a sword move with ice and snow sword intent and immediately froze 3 people who were attacking him into ice pillars. Arguros desperately released wood magic. His contract spiritual plant, the 7-star begonia, immediately turned into vines and tied up the enemies in front of him. Ruglas roared and stabbed his staff into the ground. Suddenly, a large number of boulders emerged from the ground and surrounded those mindless humans. Zicheng's 5 elemental magic was released. That magnificent and majestic magic dazzled the eyes of those who saw it. Irene's wood and fire elemental magic interchanged freely. With perfect coordination, she caused great damage to the enemies. Eve's wind elemental magic was also very proficient. At this critical moment of life and death, she didn't faint from fright. Instead, she tightly grasped the staff Zicheng gave her and continuously released wind elemental magic. No matter how powerful it was, at least those mindless guys couldn't do anything to her for a while. On the other hand, Elena was struggling. Although Elena was one of the best among the 5th years, she didn't understand sword intent. Physical attacks were useless against these monsters who didn't fear death and pain. Although her sword moves were very powerful, they couldn't cause any real damage to these monsters. The most relaxed should be Ming Shi. He didn't disgrace his status as the 5th year's top student. He was obviously a student of the Swordmaster department, but he didn't even pull out his sword. He just casually stretched out his finger and pointed at the people who were pointed at by his finger. They all froze in place and couldn't move. They could only let out unwilling roars. Because of the addition of Ming Shi and the other experts, Leafman and the others didn't suffer any injuries and were considered safe for a while. Save me. Save me. I don't want to die, I don't want to die. A pregnant woman collapsed at the entrance of the manor. There seemed to be something in her stomach that was desperately trying to come out. The woman let out a cry of despair, as if she knew that her death was near. It's too late. I can't save you. Fengwu looked at the despairing woman in front of her and slowly walked up to her. After the last scream, the woman's stomach burst open and a black baby crawled out of her stomach. This was another ghost baby. The first thing the little ghost baby did after being born was not to kill Fengwu and the others, but to eat its mother's corpse. If they didn't see it with their own eyes, who would believe that such a small thing could eat an adult's body in a few bites? After eating its mother, its eyes became redder and redder, and its body became darker. The resentment on its body was so heavy that it almost materialized. Here and in several other places, the screams of women could be heard from time to time. Those women who couldn't be saved in time all gave birth prematurely because of the resentment in the town. The moment they gave birth was naturally the moment they died. The newly born ghost baby soared into the sky and rushed towards Princess Nana's manor with a monstrous amount of resentment. The souls of the dead women flew out of their bodies. They had died too tragically and unjustly, so they wanted revenge. Princess Nana's manor was quickly surrounded by the souls of the dead women. They kept screaming, their voices were ear-piercing and filled with boundless hatred. It was as if they were going to rush in and tear Princess Nana to shreds in the next second. Why do they hate Princess Nana so much? Shouldn't they hate that demon? Ting Feng was a little confused. He thought that the first thing the girls would do was to seek revenge on the demon who had harmed them. That demon should have been hidden by Princess Nana. They can't find him, so they have to look for Princess Nana. Liddy explained. Looking at the souls of the young girls with resentment, she had a feeling that she had returned to that cave. That place was also filled with a monstrous amount of blood and resentment. This feeling was not good. For a pure spiritual body like her, she didn't like places with strong resentment at all. It would make her feel very unsatisfied. Xiao Wu, I want to go back to the contract space. The smell here is too bad. I feel uncomfortable. After saying that, Liddy didn't wait for Feng Wu to say anything and directly disappeared in front of Feng Wu and the others. Fortunately, Feng Wu and the others didn't have time to care about her. This place was filled with resentment and resentment. If they didn't deal with it soon, no one in the town would survive. Ha! Finally, it's time for me to fully recover my strength. A burst of wild and arrogant laughter suddenly rang out. Chapter 125. Everyone only felt a blur in front of their eyes. A black-clothed man wearing a black cloak appeared in front of everyone's eyes. They had to admit that this was really a handsome man. He had black hair and black eyes. His skin was very clear. He was extraordinarily handsome and had a trace of devilish charm. Seeing this man appear, everyone guessed his identity. He was probably the one that the women saw in their dreams. Sure enough, after seeing the man appear, the women's wraiths could not be bothered with Princess Nana anymore. All of them wanted to fly over and attack the man. The man merely smiled coldly. He did not even look at those wraiths. Instead, his gaze landed on those little wraith babies. I've waited too long for this moment. As long as I eat you, I'll be able to regain my peak strength. By then, even the nobles of the devil realm won't be able to do anything to me. The man's eyes were filled with greed as he looked at the little wraith babies. Lei! You're finally here. When Princess Nana saw the man, she immediately ran into his arms, ignoring the two maids who were trying to stop her. The black-haired man called Ray hugged Princess Nai gently. My dear, will our child be born safely after you regain your strength? Princess Nai asked softly as she nestled in Ray's embrace, a little excited. Of course. Lei gently stroked the princess back. However, there was no gentleness in his eyes. There was only a bloodthirsty killing intent and a thirst for power. However, Princess Nana, who had been buried in the man's arms, did not notice these emotions. My little Nai, be good and wait at the side. After I'm done with these fellows, we'll talk properly. The man's pale lips kissed Princess Nai's forehead, then he let go of her. Princess Nana obediently retreated to the side. She smiled shyly and proudly. Princess! How could you? Commander Leafman clearly did not expect Princess Nana to do this. He was completely dumbfounded. Why not? Lei is the man I love. His status is incomparably noble. We're the most compatible couple in the world. The princess completely ignored the disbelief and disapproval in Leafman's eyes. She only had expectations for her child and confidence and pride in her lover. Leafman looked at the Princess Nana in front of him. He didn't know when this princess had become so strange and incomprehensible to him. When he looked at Xiao Na and Mayer, their gazes were somewhat evasive. Leafman knew that they must have sensed something long ago, but they didn't say anything. Leafman knew that the two of them were maids of the princess, so they should be loyal to the princess. But such a big matter, the princess was pregnant before marriage, and even had an affair with a stranger. This was such a big scandal. How could the two of them not know that they were not helping the princess but harming her by helping her hide this matter? No one cared about what Leafman was thinking. Now, Ming Shi and the others' attention were all focused on the man who had just appeared and was called Lei by Princess Nana. Lei ignored Ming Shi and the others. Instead, he grabbed a ghost baby that was attacking him and opened his mouth wide, wanting to swallow it directly. In your dreams. Ajur shouted. God of the Four Seasons, open my seal. Ajur opened his hands and looked up at the sky. A dazzling red light shone down from the sky. The red light seemed to contain an endless amount of qi. The beautiful red-haired young man looked solemn in the red light. A fiery red flame mark appeared on the young man's smooth forehead. When the red light disappeared, the fiery red flame mark appeared vivid and lifelike, causing the young man to be filled with a mysterious aura. Tsang Yen. Ajur called out to the sky, and a fiery red staff came down from the sky as a response. It carried with it an aura of righteousness and landed in the young man's hand. You're actually the successor of the four god seals. The mark on your head is the seal of Xia, right? Back then, the god of the four seasons sent down the four god seals and the four great divine artifacts. Only those who are chosen by the god seals can summon the divine artifacts to the lower realm. Lei's expression changed. Then, he seemed to have thought of something and returned to normal. He even explained the power that Ajur had shown. It was unknown whether he was too confident or he was looking down on Ajur, who was not even 20 years old. The four god seals. Hearing Lei's words, most of the people realized that there was actually such an extraordinary person beside them. A person who had inherited the four god seals was destined to become a peerless expert. Even if he was still weak now, his future was destined to be incomparably brilliant. Pei Qing and Ting Feng thought, we're so lucky that our captain is the successor of the four god seals. We'll definitely live a good life if we follow him. If Ajur could hear their thoughts now, he would definitely laugh at them. Zicheng, Irene, and Eve were really surprised. None of them expected that the young man who was so close to Fengwu was the successor of the four god seals. It was said that in ancient times, the human world was very weak. The human world they lived in became the battlefield of other powerful worlds. Many innocent people died tragically in endless battles. At that time, there were two gods from the upper realm. They were originally insignificant humans in the human world, but because of their extraordinary talent, they eventually cultivated from the mortal body to the body of a god. In that battle, they saw their hometown being destroyed by the gods and demons of other worlds because they were not strong enough. The two gods pleaded with the supreme god of the upper realm. They were willing to sacrifice their divine positions in exchange for the survival of the human world. The supreme god agreed to their request and sent down four gods who were born with the blood of the gods to be reincarnated in the human world. They were the future four emperors of heaven, earth, sun, and moon. At that time, there were no four seasons in the human world. There were only two seasons, the rainy season and the dry season, which made it extremely difficult for humans to survive. So the two gods asked the god of the four seasons. The god of the four seasons was born as gods, but they were also merciful. The god of the four seasons sent down his divine power. Since then, there were four seasons in the human world, which greatly increased the chances of survival of humans. When the two gods chose to take off their divine bodies and go down to the human world, the god of the four seasons was grateful for their kindness and sent down the four god seals. The four god seals contained the power of the four seasons. Only humans who were most compatible with the aura of the four seasons could merge with the four god seals. After merging with the four god seals, they could use part of the power of the god of the four seasons. They could also summon the divine weapons of the god of the four seasons. These were all legends about the four god seals. The two gods in the legends were the Dean of the Notre Dame du Starlight and the Master of the Star Hall. Both Irene and Zicheng made up their minds to be on good terms with each other after knowing the identity of Ajur. This was especially true for Irene. She recalled the plot of Ajur and later found that Ajur only appeared in one or two scenes in the book. Even if he did appear, it was only occasionally mentioned by the author. Chapter 126. Knowing that Ajur was not the male supporting character in the book, Irene was relieved. At the same time, she made up her mind to get along well with him. It would be best to destroy the relationship between him and Zicheng. She must not let the friendship between them reach 100. Otherwise, if Zicheng controlled a divine weapon owner, it would have a great impact on her future counterattack. Eve's mood fluctuated the most. She had always looked down on Fengwu and hated Fengwu to death. Now she found out that Fengwu's good friend was a successor of the Four God Seals. The successor of the Four God Seals would definitely enter the Star Hall in the future, and his status in the Star Hall was very high. If she knew that the person she hated had such a great friend, it would be strange if Eve was happy. Fengwu also had some understanding of the Four God Seals. This was thanks to the omnipotent library. The Fengwu girl often read books in the library. Although she knew what the Four God Seals were, Fengwu did not think too much about it. All of this had nothing to do with her. Fengwu just read it as a story. Even after knowing the identity of Ajur, she did not think that Ajur had one more hand or foot than her. The several seniors were much calmer. Because of Ming Shi, they more or less had some guesses about the identity of Ajur, so they were not too surprised. However, Princess Nana and the others were the most surprised. They thought that he was just an ordinary adventurer, but they did not expect him to be a big shot. That kind of feeling was like meeting a beggar on the street, who knew that the beggar was actually the king of a country. Even if you are the successor of the Four God Seals, so what? If I see you in a few years, I will certainly have to run for my life. But you are still very weak now, and you have just inherited the God Seals. Ray said confidently. You're wrong. If you see me now, you can only run for your life. Oh, no, it's impossible for you to escape. Ajur stuck out his tongue and licked his lips, revealing a bloodthirsty and cruel smile. How arrogant! Ray snorted disdainfully. He waved his hands and took the lead to attack. Two black balls of light appeared in his hands. The black balls of light, with a dark and decaying power, fiercely attacked Ajur. Now, Ray no longer cared about the others. In his eyes, only this successor of the Four God Seals could be considered as his opponent. Glass fire, world incinerating. Ajur did not dodge. Just as the black ball of light was about to reach him, he suddenly started chanting. After he finished speaking, the staff in his hand emitted a dazzling red light. The red light carried an overwhelming righteous aura and rushed towards Ray. In the red light, the black ball of light did not even last for a breath of time before it disappeared into the air. Ray, who was also hit by the red light, was seriously injured and fell to the ground. The demonic aura on his body had become very dim, and the injuries that were about to recover had worsened several times. Seal Demon Spell, Seal. After Ajur, Mingxi took out an ordinary hardcover book. The pages were not flipped, but they rustled and moved by themselves. Just like that, the devil spirit called Lei was sealed into the book by Mingxi. Isn't that the Book of Divination Seals? It's specially used for divining demonic beasts. That's an extremely expensive item. Pei Qing looked at the seal in Ming Shi's hand. His eyes were glowing. Don't even think about it. You won't be able to afford it even if you save gold coins for a lifetime. Ting Feng shook her head. She had no hope at all. Fengwu watched the whole process of Ajur transforming into a demonic spirit. Her eyes were shining. Ajur was so powerful. Why did he become so powerful just by shouting at the sky? Heavenly Mountain even dropped a weapon for him. Even she could not do that. No. That's impossible. Ray will not lose. Release Lei. Release him. How dare you? How dare you imprison the Divine Prince? You are all stupid mortals. You will be punished by the gods. Princess Nana roared like a madwoman and rushed towards Mingxi. Unfortunately, she was caught by the leafman before she could reach him. Divine Prince. Are you crazy? That's clearly a demonic spirit. It's not even a complete demon. A complete demon has a body, but he doesn't even have a body. Elena coldly looked at Nai. No, you're talking nonsense. He's clearly the Divine Prince. During the ancient war, his body was destroyed by the Devil clan. That's why he had no choice but to exist in the form of a spirit body. As long as he recovers all of his strength, he'll become the new ruler of this world. I'll be his only wife, and our child will also become the only emperor of this world in the future. Princess Nai shook her head as she narrated the beautiful future she had drawn up for herself to the crowd. In that future, she and Ray would become the new rulers of this world. Her high and mighty sister could only kneel at her feet. She didn't even have the qualifications to look at her. Her parents were also repenting for their favoritism over the years. She was the pride of the people. When her son grew up, she would travel around the world with Ray and live a happy life. Her son would inherit Ray's throne and become the new king. Everything was so beautiful that she seemed to be able to see the picture of herself reaching the top. But these people said that Ray was a demon. No, Ray was the Divine Prince. He was the Divine Prince of the Divine Realm. Princess Nana didn't know if she really didn't believe it or didn't want to believe it. She stubbornly believed that Ray was the Divine Prince, and that her son would inherit the throne and become the ruler of this world. This is from Xiaolan. She hopes that you can take a look. Fengwu took out a sealed letter. It was the letter that Xiaolan gave her. Now, she could finally give it to Princess Nana. Hearing Xiaolan's name, Princess Nana had a reaction. After all, she had taken care of her for so many years. She opened the letter with trembling hands. On the letter, Xiaolan wrote her own experience with an uneasy and desperate heart. After quietly reading it, Princess Nana directly tore the letter into pieces. No, this isn't true. Xiaolan is just a lowly servant. What does she know? She doesn't know anything. My Ray isn't a demon. He's the Divine Prince, the Divine Prince. Princess Nana shouted louder and louder. It seemed that she wanted to use this method to increase her confidence and make herself look more determined. Xiao Na and Mayer didn't dare to approach Princess Nana now. They knew that the princess was finished. And they, who followed the princess, were also finished. Despair surrounded not only Princess Nana, but also the two of them. It's impossible for a human to have a child with a spirit. There's only a trace of demon breath in your stomach, and an infant spirit that was deceived by the demon breath. Fengwu stared at Princess Nana without blinking. She didn't understand why Princess Nana still didn't believe their words when the truth was so obvious. Chapter 127. Fengwu was a stubborn girl. She was a little unhappy that no one believed her. You're lying, you're all lying. You people who have blasphemed against the gods, you won't have a good ending. You definitely won't have a good ending. Princess Nai let out a crazy roar, and her originally beautiful face became extremely ferocious. Because she was too emotional, blue veins appeared on Princess Nana's forehead and the back of her hands. She seemed to be on the verge of collapse. Even at this time, she was still stubbornly unwilling to believe. Perhaps it was because once she believed, she would really be consigned to eternal damnation. You don't believe me? Will you believe me if I let you see your child with your own eyes? Fengwu had never encountered such a stubborn person before. She didn't know how to deal with the current situation. After thinking for a while, she finally thought of a way. Since Princess Nana insisted that her child was the son of God, then she would understand everything if she let her see the child, right? Fengwu's idea was very simple. However, when she said this, Princess Nana was stunned. She couldn't come back to her senses. She was only 4 months pregnant. The child was far from being born. She was asking her to see the child at this time. Could it be that she wanted to do something to her child? Thinking of this, Princess Nana's maternal instinct made her tightly protect her belly. She wanted to protect the product of her love with the person she loved. Feng Wu teleported to Princess Nainai's side in a blink of an eye. With a casual wave of her hand, the spiritual essence on Xiaochun's sword went straight into Princess Nainai's belly. Princess Nana felt something flowing out between her legs. She looked down and saw that her dress had been dyed black by the black blood. Ah! Let go of me. What do you want to do to my child? You despicable peasant, let go of this princess. Let go of this princess. Princess Nana screamed in panic. Like a madwoman, she used the hand that wasn't grabbed by Feng Wu to tear Feng Wu apart. Unfortunately, before Princess Nana's long fingernails could hurt Feng Wu's face, Ting Feng and Pei Qing grabbed them. Damn! Such long fingernails. If they cut Xiao Wu's face, she'll be disfigured. Ting Feng grabbed Princess Nana's waving hand and was shocked by the destructive long fingernails. Princess Nana screamed even louder. Commander Leafman saw it but didn't stop her. Princess Nana's loss of power was a foregone conclusion. Most importantly, because of Princess Nana, most of his good brothers who had gone through fire and water with him were dead. This made Commander Leafman have a complicated feeling towards Princess Nana. There was hatred and helplessness. As for Xiao Na and Mayer, they were in a daze. They hid the fact that they were pregnant from the princess. The king would definitely sentence them to death. The two of them, who were already destined to die, didn't have the energy to care about Princess Nainai. In fact, they even hated her a little. Couldn't she have just been a princess obediently? Why did she have to do something like this? It was fine if she died, but she had to drag them down with her. Princess Nana was a proud and self-abased person. In front of her own family, she always had a sense of inferiority. In front of others, she was prouder than anyone else. Even in front of her maids, she was always high and mighty. Although she was very generous to her maids, she was also very cruel. In the past, there was a maid who said that Princess Nana's talent wasn't as good as her brother and sisters, so she was killed by Princess Nana. As long as she heard that a maid in the palace spoke ill of her, no matter if it was true or false, she wouldn't let them go. No one knew better than her personal maids about Princess Nana's cruelty and heartlessness. Perhaps it was because of Princess Nana's cruelty that the people around her didn't dare to betray her. However, this kind of loyalty was also very insecure. As long as there came a day when her strength was no longer a threat to those under her, then betrayal by her subordinates would become a foregone conclusion. In the midst of Princess Nana's screams, a little thing with white light all over its body flew out of Princess Nana's belly. The little baby spirit no longer had any resentment. Probably because the devil spirit that created the resentment had been captured, the resentment that trapped the baby spirit in Princess Nana's belly disappeared. Ah ah! The little baby spirit flew out of Princess Nana's belly. After seeing Princess Nana, the confusion in its eyes at first turned into anger. The little baby spirit waved its little fist and wanted to chase after Princess Nana. Good girl, don't be angry. Be careful next time. Don't be deceived again. Feng Wu gently rubbed the little baby spirit's little hand with her fingertips. Her voice was gentle and pleasant. The little baby spirit turned its head and knew that the girl in front of it, who made it feel very comfortable, had saved it. The little guy flew in front of Feng Wu and kissed her on the cheek, as if to express its gratitude. What is this? Princess Nana fell to the ground. Her belly had returned to its flat state, but her blood-stained skirt still looked a little shocking. She stared at the little thing that flew out of her belly in disbelief. The little thing's whole body was covered in white light. Its body was transparent and had no sense of flesh. At a glance, one could tell that it couldn't be a human child. The little thing looked at her with hatred in its eyes. If the girl next to it hadn't been talking to it, she had no doubt that the little thing that came out of her belly would have flown over to hit her. Yes, it's in your stomach, but it's not your child. Just like I said, it's impossible for humans to have children with spirits. This little guy was tricked by the resentment in your stomach, so it took the initiative to enter your stomach. Later on, it was trapped by the resentment and couldn't get out. Fortunately, the demon spirit has been captured, and it's finally free. Fengwu touched the little guy's little face. Although the little thing didn't have a body, Fengwu still touched its little face. The little baby spirit and Fengwu were affectionate for a while. Originally, it wanted to deal with the bad woman who trapped it and avenge itself, but when it saw Fengwu shake her head, it reluctantly changed its mind. After all, she was its savior. The little guy gave Princess Nana a final glare, and then reluctantly said goodbye to Fengwu before flying away. No. This can't be true. How could this be? How could this be? Princess Nana looked as if she had aged several years in an instant. She muttered to herself like a crazy person, grabbing her head with both hands. She seemed to have gone crazy. She's quite pitiful. She was deceived by the demon spirit and ended up like this. Zicheng sighed, somewhat sympathetic to Princess Nana's bad experience. Chapter 128. I don't think she's pitiful at all. Other girls don't have a chance to escape from the demon's clutches, but she did. Yet, she chose to help that demon. Looking at her, it's obvious that she knew what the demon was doing. Not only did she not think of stopping it, but she also chose to pretend that she didn't know that the demon was hurting other girls for the sake of that demon and the non-existent child in her belly. Perhaps, she even helped the demon to choose the targets. I've asked the boss about the few pregnant noble girls. They're all noble girls who don't get along well with Princess Nai or who have mocked her in secret. I don't believe that Princess Nana's luck would be so good. Every time the demon attacked someone she didn't like, I don't believe that she didn't add fuel to the fire. Irene looked at Princess Nana with disdain. She didn't think that a woman who was harmed by her own ambition deserved any sympathy. But no matter what, she's just a pitiful person. If she wasn't deceived by the demon, she wouldn't have ended up like this. She's already so miserable, let's not talk about her like that. Zicheng looked at Irene disapprovingly. That's right. How can you be so vicious? Princess Nana is just a pitiful person who was deceived. Why do you have to make her sound so terrible? As Zicheng's number one little sister, Eve naturally had to stand up for Zicheng at this time. Princess Irene, Ming Shi, and the others who were about to fight back suddenly heard Leafman let out a scream of horror. They turned to look at Princess Nana's direction and found that she had killed herself with a long sword that had fallen on the ground. When Leafman found out, he wanted to stop her, but it was too late. Princess Nana closed her eyes forever and fell into a pool of blood. Xiao Chun. Fengwu didn't pay attention to Princess Nana after the little baby spirit left. Now, it didn't matter whether Princess Nana believed it or not. She had already put all the evidence in front of Princess Nana. If she still didn't believe it, then Princess Nana must be like the kind of person who didn't believe anyone but herself. Master said that there was such a person in the world who didn't believe anyone but their own judgment and eyes. Even if all the evidence was put in front of them, they wouldn't believe it. Master said that this kind of person couldn't be reasoned with, so it was better not to waste words. After ignoring Princess Nana, Fengwu asked Xiaochun to purify the resentment in the town that hadn't completely dissipated. The resentment of those who had died also needed to be purified. Otherwise, these people who had died in this town wouldn't be able to reincarnate, which was very pitiful. Xiaochun went to purify the resentment in the town, while Leafman, Ming Shi, and the others were shocked by Princess Nana's sudden suicide. Once Princess Nana died, no matter how big of a mistake she had made, it couldn't be blamed on her. They, who had accompanied and served Princess Nana, would become the first cannon fodder to be executed by the king. It seems that I'm going to die. Leafman had children at home, and his parents were still alive and well. Originally, if Princess Nana didn't die, he only needed to send Princess Nana back and explain to the king. He believed that even if the king punished him, he wouldn't take his life. However, it was different now. He failed to protect the princess, and the princess was lured by the devil soul. Now that the princess was dead, all these crimes would be placed on him. As long as he returned to the capital, he was afraid that he would die. Commander, don't worry. When we return to the capital, Mayor and I will take responsibility for everything. We won't implicate Sir. Xiao Na and Mayor were unexpectedly calm. What do you want? Liv Man and the two girls had been together for a long time. If they didn't have something to ask of him, he didn't believe that the two girls would be so great that they would run out and admit his crime together with him. Sir, please help us take care of our families. If possible, please arrange for them to leave the capital. We have some savings over the years. Please help us hand them over to our families. That's all we want. If Sir agrees, Mayor and I will take the initiative to take responsibility for our crimes. We won't implicate Sir. Xiao Na and Mayor weren't good girls, but they had their own people. Since they couldn't escape death, they might as well use their own deaths to obtain the greatest benefits for their families. Leafman looked deeply at the two young girls and finally nodded with a heavy heart. He knew that this was the best choice for everyone. Leafman easily guessed what the two girls were thinking. It was because he guessed it that his mood became even heavier. At the same time, in the faraway capital of the country, in different households, a few girls who were similarly pregnant and had listless eyes suddenly felt that something was wrong with their bodies. When they realized what was going on, they were so happy that they cried tears of joy. The belly that couldn't be removed no matter what they did had finally miscarried on its own. These girls were nobles and commoners. At this moment, they all cried with joy. They could finally see their future again. During this period of time, because of this belly, they felt like they had become monsters that couldn't die. That feeling was too terrifying. Now, everything was fine. They had a new life. When the first ray of sunlight shone on the earth the next morning, Feng Wu and the others left the small town and slowly walked towards the small inn. More than half of the people in the small town died. Fortunately, the mayor was still alive. At least there was someone to take charge of the situation. As for the girls that were saved by Feng Wu and their families, they didn't suffer any injuries in this disaster. They listened to Feng Wu's words and locked the doors and windows. No matter what happened, they didn't open the doors and windows. That was how they escaped the disaster. On the other hand, Liv Man took the surviving members of the princess's guards, as well as the corpses of Princess Nai and the other members of the princess's guards, and set off. He still had to go back and report to the king. There must be an explanation for the princess's death. This was something he couldn't escape from. Fortunately, with Xiao Na and Mayor's confession, Leafman himself wouldn't receive too severe a punishment. At most, he would be demoted. This was considered a great fortune amidst the misfortune. When Leafman left, Mingxi tore off the page of the Book of Seals with the demon soul imprinted on it and handed it to Leafman. He asked Leafman to bring it back and report to the tribunal to take the demon soul away for the final trial of the demon soul's crimes. Only a day had passed since they returned to this somewhat old inn, but everyone felt like a long time had passed. When they saw Rika and Tingyu, they felt much closer. Chapter 129. I've never thought that I would feel so close to you one day. This was the first thing Ting Feng said to Tingyu after seeing her. As expected, in the next 10 minutes, Ting Feng's situation was so bad that she was chased and beaten by her own younger sister. When the boss saw that they had returned safely, he knew that many people had died in the town. However, now that the problem had been resolved, he was both sad and relieved. In order to thank Ming Shi and the others for their help to the town, the boss said that as long as they stayed in the inn in the future, they would be free of charge as a reward for their help this time. They did not reject the boss's good intentions, especially Fengwu, who had no resistance to the word free. Everyone stayed in the boss's inn and rested for the whole day. The next morning, they set off for the two-realm battlefield. The two-realm battlefield was the place where the gods and demons fought in the ancient times. There were countless skeletons of gods and demons buried here, as well as many weapons used by gods and demons. Probably because it had been tainted with the blood of gods and demons, spirit fruits that were rarely seen in other places grew in the two-realm battlefield. For example, there were fruits that could increase one's affinity with elements, fruits that could increase one's spiritual power, fruits that could expand one's veins and make them tougher after eating them, and many other fruits that had many wonderful uses grew here. However, the places where they grew were places that humans could not set foot on. Other than these spirit fruits that were helpful to humans, there were also many plants that had been tainted with demonic nature. These plants were very harmful to humans. Furthermore, they did not look like demonic fruits at all. Once someone ate them by mistake, it would only be a matter of minutes before they turned into a demon. It was still alright if they only turned into a demon. At most, they would go to the demon realm to mingle in the future. Worse, they would be turned into a half-human half-demon by the power of the demonic fruit. When that time came, they would not be able to stay in the human world, and the demon realm would not accept them. They would really have nowhere to go. Some people were even more unlucky. Those people did not even have the chance to become half-human half-demon. They exploded and died from the power of the demonic fruit. After they died, their spiritual bodies would be tainted by demonic aura, turning them into mindless killing machines that only wanted to kill every intruder that entered the two-realm battlefield. People called those people undead. Before entering the two-realm battlefield, if one had done some research on the two-realm battlefield, they would know that the most dangerous things in the two-realm battlefield were those devil plants and the undead army. These two things were simply every adventurer's nightmare. If they were not careful, they could become the next undead at any time. Elena popularized this knowledge to these junior brothers and sisters while they were on their way. After traveling for an entire day, they finally arrived outside a valley. Legend had it that this valley was completely formed from the corpses of gods and demons. This valley was located in the two-realm battlefield, which was also the battlefield of gods and demons. Irene, aren't you going to dig for magic crystals? Why are you still following us? Eve glanced at Irene. I feel safer with everyone together. Actually, it's the same whether we dig for magic crystals or go to the two-realm battlefield, Irene said indifferently. Irene, don't run around when we go in, okay? Follow us closely. Elena still had a good impression of Irene. At the very least, she was not as muddle-headed as Eve. Okay. Irene's reply was crisp and clear. Senior Elena, you guys can go in and train yourselves. Don't worry about us. We can protect ourselves. Ajur did not want Elena and the others to miss out on their training because of these new students. Forget it, it's fine. It's good for everyone to move together. If we really split up, we'll definitely have to constantly worry about whether or not you guys have already become the undead here. The icy Skycliff spoke. His tone was so cold that it made people want to wear more clothes. The few of them stopped talking and entered the valley together. There were many demonic plants that had mutated due to demonic chi growing in this valley. These demonic plants were very aggressive. Aside from demonic plants and spiritual plants, no ordinary plants could grow in this place. There were even fewer animals. In the two-realm battlefield, the last thing to worry about was encountering demonic beasts. It was impossible for any demonic beasts to survive here. There were also people who said that they had seen legendary divine beasts here. However, legends were just legends. No one knew if they were true or not. The plants in the valley grew very strangely. The trees grew very tall. The shortest tree was more than 10 meters tall. It was impossible to find a shorter tree. They were still at the periphery of the valley. There was no need to worry about encountering the undead army. The undead would not move around near the valley entrance. After entering the valley, the people from the Ming Shi team did not walk very fast because they were worried that Feng Wu and the others were here for the first time. As they walked, they explained the characteristics of each plant, whether they would attack people, and what to be careful of. After walking for a while, other than encountering the attacks of a few mutated plants, they did not encounter any danger. At night, they found a place with better concealment. After scattering some medicinal powder, they set up camp there and prepared to rest for the night. "Seniors, I have something to tell you." After taking a deep breath, Zicheng made up his mind to tell them about the tomb of the god of sin. After observing them for a while, Zicheng knew that these seniors had good characters. At the very least, they would definitely not do things like killing people and snatching their treasures. Moreover, there was a successor of the 4 god seals beside them. Every successor of the 4 god seals must have an upright heart. If it was someone with evil thoughts, it would be impossible for them to be recognized by the 4 god seals. It was because of Ajur's existence that Zicheng was not so hesitant to tell them about the tomb of the god of sin. Originally, Zicheng's original plan was to let Elena and the others bring her to the tomb of the god of sin after entering the 2-realm battlefield. Although they could reach the tomb of the god of sin that way, it would take too much time. Moreover, they would have to hide their true purpose along the way. That would be too tiring. Although it would be safer, it would take too much time. Zicheng did not really want to take that step. After thinking about it again and again, she decided to tell them about the tomb of the god of sin and invite everyone to explore the tomb of the god of sin together. When the time came, she would have the help of the favorability system and would definitely be able to find the divine weapon before them. This way, she would not lose anything. Moreover, there would be a person with the 4 god seals going with them. With such a person accompanying them, at the very least, she would not have to worry about being ambushed by her companions. When Zicheng told them about how he found a small metal piece on the street and how he found the tomb of the god of sin in the metal piece, Irene's heart was very unsettled. Chapter 130. This was another plot that shouldn't have happened. In the original plot, Zicheng wouldn't have said anything about the tomb of the god of sin. She would have led Ming Shi and the others to that path without leaving a trace, and then pretended to have found an ancient tomb. She wouldn't have said anything about the tomb of the god of sin at all. But now, Zicheng had said something that shouldn't have been said. The plot had changed again, and it was a change in the main plot. Irene didn't know if this was good or bad for her. After listening to Zicheng's explanation, everyone was very interested in the tomb of the god of sin. They agreed to follow the map to find the tomb of the god of sin tomorrow morning. After finding the tomb of the god of sin, it would depend on their own luck. Whatever they found would be theirs. Zicheng also knew that her current strength was considered very high among her peers. It wouldn't even be a problem for her to challenge someone of a higher level. But with her current strength, she wasn't qualified to discuss the distribution of treasures with Ming Shi and the others. Fortunately, Ming Shi and the others were good people. They never thought of killing others and stealing their treasures. They didn't have any objections to Zicheng's suggestion that whatever they found would be theirs. Ming Shi and the others felt that since Zicheng was the one who found the map, she should get more things. But Zicheng didn't ask for more things. Instead, she asked them to find their own opportunities. No matter what Zicheng thought, whether she really felt that this was better or for some other reason, the final distribution was decided. The first night in the 2-realm battlefield was very quiet. This silence seemed to be the calm before the storm, and it made people feel very uneasy. Nighttime was the favorite time for the reptiles living underground to move around. There weren't any large aggressive magical beasts in the 2-realm battlefield, but there were reptiles. These creatures liked the dark. Under normal circumstances, they wouldn't appear during the day. They would only come out to play at night and catch some food that they liked to eat. These reptilian creatures were not particular about what they ate. As long as it was edible, they would eat it. Even humans would become their food. These reptilian creatures that lived at night were every adventurer's biggest enemy. No one knew where they came from, and they came and went without a trace. Although their attack method was very simple, and even their spiritual intelligence was very low, their bodies were extremely hard. No matter if it was magic or swordsmanship, it was difficult to pierce through them. Fortunately, these little reptiles were very timid. As long as you scared them, they would not hesitate to abandon you and run away. If you couldn't beat them, then sorry, these reptiles would gnaw on your skin and bones. It's so quiet. I keep feeling that the surroundings are too quiet. This was not the first time that Elena had come to the two-realm battlefield, but this was the first time that she felt uneasy. It is indeed too quiet. The person in charge of keeping watch tonight should be more careful. Ming Shi furrowed his brows as he thought, suppressing the uneasiness in his heart. Fengwu's gaze looked in a certain direction at this moment. Her expression was a bit strange, which made a juror, who had been paying attention to Fengwu from time to time, tug on her sleeve. "What's wrong?" a juror asked. "A terrifying thing has awakened here," Fengwu said. "Terrifying thing? Xiao Wu, did you see something again? Quickly tell us." Ting Feng couldn't wait to ask. The others also looked at Fengwu. After what had happened in the small town, everyone realized that Fengwu was not a simple girl. Naturally, they took her words seriously. Wasn't Fengwu the one who had first discovered that something was wrong with Princess Nana? It could be said that in the Demon Soul incident, the one who played the most important role was Fengwu. If it wasn't for Fengwu's abilities, more people would have died. Fengwu shook her head. "I didn't see anything, but I heard something." Fengwu pursed her lips and didn't say anything else. "What did you hear? Can Xiao Wu tell us?" Tingyu moved over to the seat next to Fengwu and sat down. "A powerful fellow has awakened in the valley. Many people will die." Fengwu turned to look at Tingyu, who was acting cute, and said. "Can you be more specific? What exactly is it that has awakened?" Ruglaz asked. "I don't know. They don't know either. They only know that the thing always wakes up once in a while. Every time it wakes up, many people will die." Fengwu naturally heard the news from the nearby plants, although the plants here were more or less demonized. However, even if they were demonized plants, they could still communicate with Fengwu. Fengwu didn't feel any pressure at all if she wanted to understand what they were saying. Ming Shi and Skycliff looked at each other. They both felt that something big was about to happen. They were afraid that what happened this time would only be more terrible than what had happened in the small town. "Should we leave here?" Pei Qing still had a lot of trust in Fengwu's abilities. After knowing that something big was about to happen, the first thing that came to mind was to leave here first. "No, we can't leave. Didn't we all agree to explore the ancient tomb together?" Eve was the first to object. "What do the others think?" Ming Shi smiled very gently. There seemed to be a strange light in his eyes, making people feel like they were bathing in the spring breeze. There were only 3 people who wanted to leave the most. They were Pei Qing, Ting Feng, and Tingyu. The others didn't want to leave. Zicheng naturally couldn't bear to part with the tomb of the gods that was about to be in his hands. Irene saw that Zicheng didn't say that he wanted to leave, so she naturally couldn't take the initiative to leave. Eve had always followed Zicheng's footsteps. If Zicheng didn't leave, it would be strange if she left. As for Rika, she had always been a person of few words in this temporary team. She also prioritized everyone's opinions. In the end, because the minority followed the majority, the final result was that everyone naturally stayed here to train together. Originally, Elena wanted to let Fengwu and the other juniors leave. After seeing that none of them wanted to leave, she didn't say anything more. Moreover, Elena didn't dare to confirm how powerful the powerful guy Fengwu mentioned was. Their team was made up of the top experts in the Holy Court. Moreover, there was a successor of the 4 god seals. How could they possibly be afraid of something that they hadn't even met yet? Thinking of this, she also felt much more at ease. The few of them chatted for a while. Seeing that they couldn't get any more useful information from Fengwu, the rest of the team returned to their tents to sleep, except for those who were on night watch. In the early morning in the valley, there were no sounds of any animals. Even the chirping of birds could only be heard in the 2-realm battlefield. Outside the valley, sunlight shone on the ground, covering the earth with a layer of golden gauze. Inside the valley, because the trees were too tall and the leaves were lush, very little sunlight could penetrate from outside. Chapter 131. Perhaps it was because the valley last night gave people an uneasy feeling, which made many people unable to sleep very well. Early in the morning, everyone had already woken up. They tidied up the things they needed to set up camp and extinguished the bonfire. Zicheng took out the metal piece and studied the map with Ming Shi and the others. After confirming the path, they set off again. In the dark forest, only the footsteps of a few people could be heard. There were no sounds of animals, birds, or insects. This kind of silence made them feel uneasy. For some reason, the valley was especially peaceful today. Even the mutated demonic plants that would occasionally attack them did not appear, and the legendary undead army was nowhere to be seen. In such a peaceful valley, they walked for a few hours. Apart from their conversation, they did not hear any other sounds. Is there something wrong? Isn't the 2-realm battlefield a legendary dangerous place? How can it be so peaceful and peaceful? Why does this feel wrong? Tingyu puffed up her cheeks and purposely stomped on the ground. That way, they could at least hear some noise. Everyone agreed with Tingyu's words. Wasn't that so? Everyone nodded secretly. This was really too peaceful. If they did not know that this was a famous dangerous place in the entire continent, no one would be able to associate such a peaceful place with the 2-realm battlefield. The calmer it is now, the more dangerous it will be in the future. Everyone be careful. Don't be careless. Ming Shi frowned secretly, the uneasiness in his heart growing. As they did not encounter any obstacles along the way, they advanced smoothly in the direction of the divine mausoleum. They did not expect to hear the sounds of fighting as they walked. It was very normal to see people fighting in the 2-realm battlefield. There were many reasons why people would fight. Some were for benefits, some were for self-protection, and some were unlucky enough to meet their enemies in the 2-realm battlefield. In short, in this place, if you saw people fighting together, don't take it too seriously. Just stay far away and don't let the fire burn you. It was not the first time that Ming Shi and the others had come to a dangerous place to train, so they immediately made the choice to take a detour. Killing and robbing happened every day in the 2-realm battlefield. It was impossible to do anything about it even if they wanted to. Moreover, Ming Shi and the others were not so saintly. They would care about the small town's matters because the victims were all ordinary people. Moreover, the perpetrator was not an ordinary person, but the demon spirit of an ancient demon. And in the 2-realm battlefield, ordinary people did not exist. Ordinary people could not enter the 2-realm battlefield, unless they wanted to commit suicide. Those who came here were all here to seek treasures. Since they were here to seek treasures, they would definitely be prepared to die an unnatural death at any time. If they wanted to obtain treasures, they would naturally have to take a certain amount of risk. No one was obligated to help them. Ming Shi and the others made the correct decision in an instant. Unfortunately, just as they were about to take a detour, they had not taken a few steps when 7 people rushed out from nearby. Among the 7 people, there were 2 women and 5 men. The two women were very beautiful. Although they looked very wretched, there were no injuries on their bodies. As for the 5 men, there were wounds of different sizes on their bodies. It was obvious that they had just gone through a life and death struggle. "You've come. Come and help us." Among the 2 women, a woman in blue clothes' eyes lit up when she saw Fengwu and the others. She immediately ran towards Ming Shi and the others. They were planning to use them as scapegoats. At this time, even if they said that they did not know that woman and the others, no one would believe them. Ming Shi and the others secretly frowned. They did not expect to encounter such a situation. Behind the 7 people was a group of mercenaries. This group had a total of more than 30 people. Magicians made up a small part of the group, about 10 people. The remaining 20 or so people were all swordmasters. These swordmasters were all wearing the same swordmaster uniform. The 30 or so people all wore the same badge. These 30 or so people all looked murderous. Moreover, these people did not look like they were to be trifled with. Their strength was not low. The 7 people who were being chased rushed towards Fengwu and the others. It seemed that they were determined to drag all of them down with them. Unfortunately, their wishful thinking was destined to fail. Skycliff coldly pulled out his long sword and pointed the tip of the sword at the 7 people who were rushing over. He circulated his ice do-chi to the sword. He did not use any sword moves. He just casually waved his hand and it made people feel an endless chill. It was as if they were about to be frozen. As Skycliff waved his sword, the 7 people simultaneously felt that they could not lift their feet. When they looked down, their feet were actually frozen at the same time. "What are you doing? Let us go." The expressions of the 7 people who were in a hurry to escape changed greatly, especially the lady in blue. She did not expect that she would drag a group of people down with her just to buy some time for them. She did not expect that she would drag a group of people who were not to be trifled with. Any one of them could freeze all 7 of them at the same time with a casual swing of the sword. If they still thought that the other party was a soft persimmon that they could pinch at will with such strength, then they were too retarded. "Friends, thank you for your help." A middle-aged swordmaster walked out from the group of mercenaries who were chasing them and nodded to Ming Shi and the others. Looking at the other party's expression, it was obvious that he did not believe the words of the 7 people. That was right. Those who could survive in the 2-realm battlefield were not idiots. That lady in blue could think of dragging people down with her, could others not see through her intentions? No need to be polite. They overestimated themselves. Skycliff looked coldly at the 30 mercenaries, put away his longsword, and turned to walk back to the group. Skycliff's behavior was very rude. Some people in the mercenary group immediately glared angrily at Skycliff, but no one spoke up to denounce him. As expected, those who could survive in the 2-realm battlefield were not idiots. Casually making enemies without understanding the strength of others was the rhythm of wanting to die. "I am the captain of the 3rd small team of the Inferno mercenary group, Cohen. May I know who you are, my friends?" Cohen was not angered by Skycliff's attitude. Instead, he laughed very straightforwardly. "We are merely students of the Notre Dame du Starlight who have come out for training. Our names are not worth mentioning." Ming Shi said with a faint smile. Ming Shi was the most beautiful among all of them. His beauty was like the gentle moonlight. That faint smile was like a ray of moonlight that suddenly appeared in the darkness, shining into the hearts of others. This person was too good-looking. Cohen sighed inwardly. Compared to this person's looks, their group was like a group of butchers who could not be seen in public. Cohen did not suspect anything when he heard that they were students of the Notre Dame du Starlight who had come out for training. After being a mercenary for so many years, he still had this bit of discernment. Chapter 132. Let us go. Do you know who we are? We're from the Italy family. If you dare to hurt us, the Italy family will never let you off. Beside the blue-clothed woman, a green-clothed woman was shouting crazily. Ming Shi wasn't the least bit interested in why they were fighting with these 7 people. He said his goodbyes and led his people to leave. Wait a moment, students. Something big might happen in the two-realm battlefield. If you're only here to train, it's better to leave quickly. Of course, Ming Shi team wasn't the only one who noticed the abnormality in the valley. The other experienced people also noticed it. Letting Ming Shi and the others leave at this time was indeed out of goodwill. He didn't want to see such a young group of students with a bright future get into trouble in the two-realm battlefield. Thank you for your concern, but we'll be careful. Ming Shi's gaze became even more sincere because Cohen sincerely wanted to remind them. Although they had already noticed that something was wrong with the valley, they still had to accept his kindness. Seeing that Ming Shi had taken his advice, Cohen didn't care whether they planned to leave or stay. After all, they were just strangers who had met by chance. He couldn't care too much about Ming Shi and the others. It was already good enough that he was reminded. After Ming Shi and the others took a detour and left, they didn't care about what would happen to the two teams. Before night fell, the group found a good place to set up camp and cook. Unlike Fenwu and the others who only had the habit of carrying dry rations, Ming Shi team's people went out to train every year. They were already used to carrying all kinds of spices and ingredients with them. This way, when they didn't want to eat dry rations, they could still make something to eat. We'll help too. Zicheng took the pot from Elena's hands and helped her set it up. Eve helped Elena wash the vegetables. The water used to wash the vegetables was conjured by Zicheng using water magic. On the other hand, Irene was holding a kitchen knife and peeling potatoes. Fortunately, potatoes were very popular even in this world. Moreover, the potatoes in this world were very big, several times bigger than the potatoes on Earth. Fengwu, come help me cut the vegetables. Elena saw Fengwu standing there in confusion. She didn't seem to know what to do. Her heart softened. She handed the kitchen knife to Fengwu and asked her to help cut the vegetables. Fengwu took the kitchen knife, and her eyes lit up. This was the first time that someone had given her a job related to the kitchen. The Fengwu girl was a little excited. Ajur had just finished setting up the tent for the night with the other boys. When he turned around, he saw Fengwu cutting vegetables. She was cutting vegetables. This should be fine, right? As long as I don't let Fengwu cook, there should be no problem, right? Ajur was a little uncertain. He knew that Fengwu's cooking was simply dark cuisine. He remembered that he didn't know any better and asked Fengwu to cook once. In the end, he fainted for a full 20 minutes after taking a bite. 20 minutes. If someone wanted to harm him, 20 minutes was enough for him to die several times over. Moreover, after he woke up, he couldn't eat for 3 days. He vomited whenever he ate. In just 3 days, he lost 5 pounds. That was an unbearable past. It was too sad to think about it. It was better not to think about it. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to eat dinner. When Ajur thought about this dark history, his stomach started to churn. No, he definitely couldn't let Xiao Wu cook dinner. It was too dangerous. This was the two-realm battlefield. If he really fainted in a place like this, he didn't think that he would have any chance of waking up. Any undead or reptile would be able to kill him instantly. Xiao Wu, are you cooking? Ajur carefully moved closer, his voice carrying a hint of caution. Eve didn't want Fengwu to falsely claim Zicheng's credit, so she immediately said loudly, Little Cheng is the one cooking today. Little Cheng's culinary skills are very good. Many of the popular delicacies out there are from Little Cheng's hands. Is that so? Then you guys cook well. I won't disturb you. So it wasn't Xiao Wu who was cooking. Ajur heaved a huge sigh of relief. His entire body relaxed. He turned and waved at Fengwu, then ran into the forest to pick up branches. Fengwu, what is he doing here? The aroma of dinner wafted out from the pot from time to time. Zicheng had made a pot of potato and beef stew. It was very fragrant. Ruglas and Arguros both praised Zicheng's culinary skills. Junior Zicheng's hands are really too skillful. She can actually make such delicious food. If only Elena's culinary skills were half as good as Zicheng's, then we wouldn't have to worry about not having a good meal when we travel. Ruglas sighed happily as he ate the beef in his bowl. Arguros discreetly sat further away. This idiot. So you're saying that Junior Ruglas is very dissatisfied with my culinary skills? The last word was slightly dragged out, causing all the hairs on Ruglas' body to stand up. Only then did he realize how big of a mistake he had made. He actually dared to say that Elena's culinary skills were not good in front of her. Wasn't that a sign of wanting to die? Big sister Elena, I was wrong. I was confused and said the wrong thing. Can you be magnanimous and pretend you didn't hear it? Ruglas was like a little wife who was being abused. He hugged his bowl with tears in his eyes. The scene was too beautiful, and everyone expressed that they didn't want to see it. No. Can. Elena gently put down her bowl and walked to Rugras' side in an extremely ladylike manner. Her snow-white little hand took away the bowl that was tightly held in his hand and conveniently put it aside. After that, she lifted Rugras up as if he was a chick. Save me. I won't dare to talk nonsense anymore. Ruglas cried out miserably. It was a pity that the companions beside him didn't have any love for their companions. No one extended a helping hand to him. Because Ruglas was looking for trouble, Elena pulled him to the side to teach him a lesson. The others either ate or watched the show. Arguros was still waving a little handkerchief that he had gotten from who knows where, lightly waving it there. Is Senior Ruglas all right? Zicheng looked worriedly at the two people who had disappeared into the bushes. Don't worry about them. Don't worry, they will definitely leave him alive. Arguros put away the little handkerchief and said without worry. All right, Zicheng took back his worries. It seemed like he was thinking too much. A large pot of stewed beef with potato was finished just like that. The second night in the two-realm battlefield was still so peaceful. It was so peaceful that it was frightening. The news of the divine tomb appearing in the two-realm battlefield spread like wildfire. No one knew where this news came from. When everyone discovered it, almost everyone who was still training in the two-realm battlefield already knew about it. Chapter 133. When Fengwu and the others arrived at the location marked on the map, they were surprised to find that a large group of people had appeared at the entrance of the Tomb of the Gods. This sudden change made Irene and Zicheng completely dumbfounded. Zicheng didn't understand why so many people would appear at this place, while Irene couldn't figure out how the plot had changed. In the original movie, the Tomb of the Gods was discovered by a clan and fought with the female lead, Zicheng. In the end, the female lead, Zicheng, successfully obtained the divine artifact. No one else discovered the location of the Tomb of the Gods. But now, what was going on? Why did so many people know about it? Ming Shi and the others didn't feel anything because they didn't know if anyone else knew about the location of the Tomb of the Gods. Most importantly, they didn't know that it was a Tomb of the Gods. Zicheng had always held back and didn't reveal everything. The two-realm battlefield was very, very big. Many people came here to train. Those who could survive here for a long time were all experts. These experts all had the same confidence in their own strength. At the same time, they wouldn't underestimate anyone who appeared in the two-realm battlefield. Because the news of the Tomb of the Gods appearing had suddenly spread, people gathered here from time to time. The entrance of the Tomb of the Gods was already surrounded by forces of all sizes. It was impossible for anyone to enter the Tomb of the Gods without alerting others. Because there were simply too many people who rushed to the entrance of the tomb of the gods and wanted to enter to search for treasures, Ming Shi and the others who suddenly appeared naturally didn't attract too much attention. Ming Shi and the others could tell that the situation wasn't right. The group didn't do anything that would attract attention. They quietly found a place and stood there. They were a little confused about the current situation. Some people were born with bodies of light. Even if they stood there and didn't say anything, they would definitely attract attention. Most of Ming Shi's group had this potential. There was the gentle and beautiful Zicheng, the beautiful and generous Elena, the bright and cheerful Irene, and the black-haired and black-eyed Fengwu, who had a unique oriental charm. Even Eve and Rika were beautiful women. Among the men, Ajur had a head of fiery red hair and was surrounded by waves of fire elements. Skycliffe's cold eyes with a faint murderous aura, Ming Shi's perfect face that was as beautiful as the moon, and the gentle and natural aura that surrounded him. The three men with different temperaments naturally attracted the attention of many people. Many female adventurers focused their gazes on the three of them. As for the other men, sorry, they didn't have any distinguishing features. The women said that they didn't notice there were other men in the team. The men who didn't look were speechless. Hey! Are you also here to look for treasures in the tomb of God? Not far from Ming Shi's group stood another group of people. There were both men and women in this group. They were obviously very interested in the people of the Ming Shi team. After staring at them for a few minutes, a young man who looked a little slovenly finally came over. You too. Arguros, as the little diplomatic expert of the Ming Shi team, naturally took the job of the ambassador of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But what the hell was the tomb of God? Wasn't this an ordinary ancient tomb? Whether it was Ajur or Rugla's, they all looked at Zicheng secretly, wondering if she knew that this ancient tomb was actually the tomb of God. Ajur became suspicious of Zicheng and made a decision in his heart. If they really entered the ancient tomb, they must be careful of the girl called Zicheng. That girl didn't look very honest. Although Ruglas and the others also had some doubts, they didn't immediately convict Zicheng. Maybe she really didn't know. And even if she knew, she was the one who found the information about the tomb of God. It was reasonable for her to hide something. After all, the temptation of the tomb of God was too great, and it was necessary to guard against people. Zicheng's impression in the hearts of these people changed a little because of this incident. Didn't you say it was an ancient tomb? Fengwu asked, puzzled. The Fengwu girl didn't mean anything else. She was just curious about this matter. Unfortunately, in the ears of some people, it wasn't the case. Zicheng bit her lip. Her expression was a little bad, and her eyes revealed a sense of uneasiness and grievance. I'm sorry, Xiao Wu. I really didn't know that this was a tomb of God. I really thought it was an ancient tomb. Zicheng acted like an ignorant girl and vividly portrayed the grievance of being misunderstood. If she didn't know the truth beforehand, Irene would have applauded her acting. What do you mean? Are you blaming Little Cheng? Little Cheng hasn't been here before. She didn't mean to lie to you. Eve, who had always been the most protective of Zicheng, naturally jumped out to make her presence known. Ladies, this is indeed a tomb of God. However, the news of this tomb of God suddenly spread yesterday. No one knows where it came from. In any case, this news seemed to have spread throughout the entire two-realm battlefield overnight. Even the exact location of the tomb of God was spread. We came here to verify it. That young man didn't seem to notice the undercurrent between the girls as he spoke with a calm expression. So it's like that. We also heard that an ancient tomb had appeared nearby, so we wanted to try our luck. We didn't expect that this wasn't an ancient tomb, but a tomb of God. Arguros timely expressed her surprise at this matter. Then the person who passed the news to you must have misheard. The appearance of the tomb of God is a grand occasion for the entire continent. Who knows how many experts are rushing here? Right now, several large mercenary groups have already surrounded the entrance of the tomb of God. Unless the key to open the tomb of God is gathered, no one can enter. Key. There's a key to open the tomb of God. Why hadn't they heard of this before? Of course there's a key. This is a tomb of God. If you don't have some tricks up your sleeve, not just anyone can enter. The young man said. Then who has the key? Pei Qing couldn't help but ask. The young man turned to look at Pei Qing. It should be with the Raging Inferno mercenary group. That's what the rumors say outside. Raging Inferno mercenary group. This name was too familiar. Didn't they meet them yesterday? Arguro's thought about how the young man in front of her said that the news of the Tomb of God had suddenly spread yesterday, and that they had met the Raging Inferno mercenary group yesterday to capture those 7 people. Could it be that there was some kind of relationship between the two? You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.